Good evening, everyone. Mr. Clerk, the time is 7 o'clock on Tuesday, June 6, 2023, and I'd like to call this general committee meeting to order. First of all, the land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest person, or as the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They're the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. May I please have a motion to approve the revised agenda? Councillor Reese, Councillor Gilliland. Any questions or comments on the agenda? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, we have two community presentations this evening. The first one, Mr. Javed Khan, President and Chair, and Wendy Browne, Chair, Induction Committee, Aurora Sports Hall of Fame, regarding the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame, introducing the 2023 class of inductees. Welcome, Javed, and welcome, Wendy Browne. And do I understand that you need 15 minutes? Great. Can I have a motion to for that, please? Councillor Gardner, Councillor Gallo, all those in favor? You have your 15 minutes, Javed.
Great. Thank you. Town of Aurora Council staff, ladies and gentlemen, and all those watching on YouTube. I'm honored to be here tonight in my role as the chair of the nominations committee as we gather for a very special announcement and unveil the highly anticipated 2023 class of inductees to the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame. This evening marks a significant milestone in our organization's journey as we recognize and celebrate the remarkable accomplishments of exceptional individuals who have left an indelible mark on the world of sports and sports culture. Their unwavering commitment, extraordinary talent, and relentless pursuit of excellence have brought pride and glory to our beloved town of Aurora. I have the pleasure of introducing someone who has been instrumental in this entire process and was recently recognized as the 2023 Citizen of the Year. Next slide. Wendy Browne, the chair of our induction committee, has worked tirelessly alongside her dedicated team of volunteers and with the members of the selection panel to meticulously evaluate the nominations, assess the impact of each candidate's accomplishments, not only from a quantitative, but also from a qualitative perspective, and make the difficult decisions that have led us to the moment. As Wendy announces each name, let us take a moment to reflect on the extraordinary achievements of these individuals. They have triumphed over adversity and showcased unwavering sportsmanship. Through their remarkable feats, they have exemplified the values of dedication, passion, positive character values, and perseverance that lie at the heart of the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I invite Wendy Browne to the podium to reveal the names of our exceptional inductees. Wendy.
Thank you, Javed, and hello all. First, I would like to thank all of the induction committee members, Alex Ansell, Al Downey, Hank Gosar, Javed Khan, and Jerry Miller. I would also like to thank the members of the anonymous selection panel. Before I announce the 2023 class of inductees, I'd like to take a few moments to provide an overview of the nomination process. We have a projection up there, but I'll expand. First, the nomination packages from the community are received, and each year the deadline for the submissions to our nomination committee is April 1st. Once the nomination committee has reviewed these submissions, they are scanned and forwarded to the induction committee. The induction committee will review these submissions along with submissions from previous years. Then each member of the anonymous selection panel will receive a copy of each individual package electronically. Third, the selection panelists then utilize an electronic scoring matrix to evaluate each submission following specific guidelines for the three categories. Once each panelist has completed their evaluation of all submissions using this matrix, they send their results to the induction committee. Fourth, the induction committee is presented with and reviews the summary of these matrix scores. They proceed to discuss and consider each candidate, having consideration for both quantitative and qualitative factors. After their deliberation, the induction committee will present their final recommendations for inductions to the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame Board of Governors. The board reviews these recommendations, discusses, and then votes. The result of this vote provides the inductees of that year. The induction committee chair notifies each selected inductee of their successful induction, and the nomination committee chair sends an email along with a post letter to the nominators of the candidates acknowledging their participation and providing necessary updates. I'll now present the 2023 Aurora Sports Hall of Fame inductees. I don't know who you have up. The first one is Lori Buckland. Lori Buckland is being inducted as a builder contributor in the category of golf. He was a professional golfer, Highlands in 1973 for 21 years. Former part owner of the Aurora Tigers Junior A team. Director of sports at Highlands, he was responsible for golf, tennis, squash, fitness, and aquatics. In 1984, along with Thomas McBroom, Lori designed and built the now Kings Riding Golf Course owned by Club Link. Lori passed away January 9th, 2013. Next one. Next one. The next inductee is Charles Leeming, athlete, hockey. Charles played hockey from 1955 to 2022, winning several provincial championships. Fastball, baseball, softball player from 1957 to 1977. 1963 All-Ontario champion and led the batting average in 1972. Rugby player between 1958 and 1960, and recently celebrated his 80th birthday. Our next inductee is Frank Pete Machel, athlete for lacrosse, known as one of Eastern Canada's greatest lacrosse players, 1913 to 1921 champions Metropolitan Cup Series with Aurora Lacrosse Club. Top 10 league scorer in 22, 23, 26, and 1927. 1932 Man Cup champions with Brampton Excelsior's Senior A, and he passed away August 1947. And the fourth inductee is Jim Thompson, athlete, hockey. Professional hockey player in the NHL, IHL, OHL, and AHL. Current owner of the Aurora Tigers Junior A team. Founder and motivational speaker of Dreams Do Come True. 10 seasons with 6 NHL teams. Jim emphasizes hard work, perseverance, respect, fair play, and courage. I think Jim's here. Congratulations to our 2023 class of inductees.
Thank you, Wendy. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to a close of this special evening, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to everyone for joining us tonight. Your presence has made this event truly memorable. Tonight, we celebrate more than just the induction of a remarkable 3 athletes and 1 builder into the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame. We also celebrate the power and value of community sports Hall of Fames. It serves as a beacon of inspiration, showcasing the achievements and resilience of our local sport heroes. Together, we continue to honor the spirit of sportsmanship, perseverance, and excellence within our community. Let us carry the torch of inspiration and continue to uplift and empower the next generation of athletes, coaches, and builders. Finally, I extend my congratulations and warmest welcome to the 2023 class of inductees of the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame. Your remarkable achievements have earned you a well-deserved place among the legends of our town's sport history and culture. And may the spirit and sportsmanship and camaraderie be with you always. Good night.
Thank you, Javed. Wendy, Council, any comments or questions? Councillor Weiss.
Yes. Thanks, Javed. Thanks, Wendy. It's great to see you here. I want to congratulate all of those who have spent so many years in contribution to their craft. But I also want to thank the families of all of these people. I know as well as anybody what it's like to always be out there practicing, playing, building. It's a big job. And so I think we need a round of applause for all of the family members and those people who have helped prop all of these special people up. So I want to congratulate all the families as well as those people who are being inducted in this, the 10th year of the Hall. So congratulations and thank you.
Next, we have Mayor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Javed, Wendy, thank you very much for coming this evening. Sorry, I just covered up my camera there by accident, so I apologize. No, thanks for coming this evening, and obviously congratulations to all the inductees for the class of 2023. It's always exciting as we continue to celebrate what I believe to be the best sports Hall of Fame in not only York Region, but the GTHA. And it's due to the work of the volunteers that make up the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame and everyone in our community. So thanks again. I'm looking forward to celebrating these incredible Aurorans at the induction dinner November 2nd as we honor their accomplishments. So thank you very much for coming this evening, and what a great way to start the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councillor Gilliland, followed by Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to repeat everything that was said, but congratulations to everybody here. Wow, it's such a great crowd. Obviously, there's a lot of support for each and every one of you. And I love the fact that other people from the Hall of Fame are here in support. It really just shows there's a lot of camaraderie here. And I think that really says a lot about the Sports Hall of Fame and how special it is here. And I guess through you, Mr. Chair, to Javed or Wendy, is the dinner is November the 2nd. I thought maybe you can give us a little bit more details of maybe the date and how people can maybe find out information about that should they want to participate in the celebrations.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland, through you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely. It's Thursday, November the 2nd. As Councillor Weiss reminded us, it is at the Royal Venetian Mansion at 400 Industrial Parkway here in the great town of Aurora. It is a two style. Right now it's up in the air because we do have a new event manager. It's going to be sort of a Marche style, and then we open up the theater to have the celebration. We have our MC, Rod Black, who will be our MC again for this year. And there's a couple other things we're going through right now that we've officially announced the inductees. And as Councillor Weiss did remind us, and thank you for that, you all know that Councillor Weiss is one of the co-founders of this organization, did a tremendous job at the very beginning to get this thing going. It is our 10th annual. It is going to be a extra special year for us. And tickets are available, not yet, but when they are, they'll be communicated digitally. We'll have them in the papers, and it's open to the public. It's not just for family and friends of the inductees. Anyone can come and be part of the event and celebrate with these inductees, because that's what it's all about. It's celebrating with these inductees and their families and friends. And we're really looking forward to one of the more premium events you're going to have in this community.
Thank you. And and also, if you might as well take this time to let people remind them about the golf event that you have going on as well, since I'm sure that people can purchase those tickets.
Right. Thank you. I have to slip you a check for all this. But yes, thank you for that, Councillor Gilliland. June 21st is the longest day of the year, but it's also National Indigenous Day. So we are going to be starting the event with respect and celebration to our First Nations community. But yes, it's June 21, Pheasant Run. Information has been through the social channels. So if you're on any of our 4 social channels, please look at that. The link to register is there. We're almost at 120 golfers. I think we're just north of 100. And I think Stu's here tonight. Stu's and the team have done a phenomenal job. And so if you still have an opportunity to join us, June 21, and we do have a number of sports celebrities that will be joining us. including some of our prestigious Hall of Famers from the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame. They'll be there for the day. And Stu and Mike have done a phenomenal job to make sure that we're in and out at a certain time, which is great. And so that's at Pheasant Run Golf Club.
Great. Thanks so much. And congratulations once again.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I too was going to ask about the induction ceremony and give you an opportunity to promote it, but Councillor Gilliland asked first, and so fantastic. We'll certainly love to see you there. I'll just quickly just say, congratulations to the inductees on well-deserved honors. Certainly excellent work by the committee and all those involved with the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame. Thank you very much for coming tonight, and we'll see you on November 2nd.
Councillor Gardner.
It's wonderful to see such a full council chamber, especially for such an important reason to honor excellence in sport. Javed, I wonder if you would, I've noticed there is at least one former inductee in the audience. I wonder if you would be able to say who's present or ask them to stand.
If I could ask all the Hall of Famers who are here with us tonight just to stand so we can recognize you. Jan was here. Okay, so Jan Jones was here. She had babysitting duties, I think. But we have our Hall of Famers. Where are they? So we've got Hall of Famer Dave Giroux, Paulina Allen, Alan Dean, Alex Ansel, Colin Graham, Lowell McClenny, and we did have Janice Jones. And I've recognized them all, correct? There, thank you. Those are our Hall of Famers for
Thank you.
Thank you, Javed and Wendy, for your delegation. And, there are only 2 times a year where we get crowds like this. And once is to celebrate the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame, and the other when there's conversations about complaints about garbage pickup. And I much rather prefer this crowd than the other. And I just want to also congratulate all the inductees. When I hear the stories and I see you guys and I hear your stories about how you succeeded, you don't just elevate yourself, but those around you and all those in council and all the residents. So thank you so much for your dedication in sports, because it not only uplifts your family and yourself, but all of Aurora. So thank you so much. Oh, Councillor Gallo. Sorry.
Without repeating everything that everyone said, we did have a budget meeting before you arrived, and fortunately, we didn't have the same attendance as this. We can see what the popularity is in this town. Just a huge congratulations to everyone, and especially the volunteers who take their time out of their days to contribute to the town of Aurora. And this is the results of all of that. So congratulations to all the inductees.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. With that, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Go on to our next delegation. Okay, so we'll move on to the next delegation. Koren Kim and Sumaya Chaudary, Aurora's Youth Engagement Committee, Youth Engagement Committee 2022-23, end of term update. So we'll just wait 30 seconds and then. Okay, so welcome Koren and Sumaya. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Koren Kim. Speaking with me is Sumaya Chaudary. We are representing Aurora's Youth Engagement Committee. Other members in attendance tonight include Jessica Nigel, Dabia Petrodragos, Johnson Wang, Jake Riddle, Serena Yogaraj, and Nick Riddle. Our final member, Jaden Sander, could not attend this evening. The Youth Engagement Committee is a group of youth aged 12 to 17 who serve to guide and advise staff on programming, special events, and services for youth in the town of Aurora. The committee works with the town to address current trends, engage youth, and provide youth-focused perspectives. This year's committee is comprised of 9 youths who live or attend school in Aurora, representing 5 different schools and grades. We are honored to be here tonight to share our experiences for the 2022 to 2023 committee term with, of course, Mayor Maracus, council, and community. It's been a busy year for the committee, and we have enjoyed working with the town on events, initiatives, and services to benefit teens in Aurora. The year began with the return to the annual in-person Youth Volunteer Fair, attended by over 100 youth. The committee attended to provide information about the town volunteer opportunities and help promote upcoming events for teens. One of the main projects this year has been building a survey to gain feedback from Aurora teens for future recreation programming. The results of this survey will help the town's recreation team design and adjust programming for teens over the next few years. And throughout this process, we met with staff from the town of Aurora's very own communications team to support in marketing the survey. And the survey launched on May 1st and will continue into the summer to capture feedback from as many Aurora teens as possible.
This past fall, we provided feedback on programs and services, transportation and safety, and neighborhood planning that was included in the town's recreation master plan as a part of the community engagement and outreach. It was an honor to not only have our youth voices included in the consultation process, but to have our feedback included in its entirety. We are proud to see Aurora make youth recreation experiences a priority and grateful we could assist in the process. Throughout the year, we were joined by community groups and individuals that shared information and experiences for us to pass on to our peers. In November, staff from 360 Kids Night Stop presented on their program and the supports for teens facing homelessness. In March, the committee met with Mayor Maracus to discuss his community experience and youth engagement. Also in March, staff from Aurora's Cultural Services team presented on the public art plan and worked with the committee to create unique pieces for the Little Free Art Gallery. May was a busy month as we participated in a focus group with the town's communications department for the upcoming corporate communications plan. We also had a presentation from the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame on their new youth ambassadors. It's been meaningful to see so many youth experiences and voices included in the conversation about the future of Aurora. Our final event of the year was the National Youth Week from May 1st to 7th. We helped the town plan a variety of free events and drop-ins for teens ages 12 to 17. Including the return of the much-loved 3-versus-3 basketball tournament. It was also the first year the town raised the National Youth Week flag at the town hall, where committee had the opportunity to speak with MPP Don Muffy Gallagher. The week was a great opportunity for community to celebrate and recognize the accomplishments of youth in Aurora. The community will be wrapping up our term on June 14th. We are grateful for the opportunity to be involved in our community and look forward to the upcoming 2023-2024 term, including recruitment of new members interested in getting involved in Aurora. Applications are now open until July 31st. We'd like to recognize our graduating committee members, Johnson Wang, who has completed 3 terms, and Jake and Nick Riddle, who have both completed 5 terms. Thank you to Mayor Maracus and members of council for your time and for the opportunity to contribute to the experience of youth in Aurora.
Thank you. I have a motion to receive the presentation, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Gilliland. Any comments or questions? Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. Outstanding work by all of you. I was a member of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee in Mississauga with Mayor Hazel McCallion way back. And I understood the value that the youth provides to municipalities. So thank you very much for all your work. Could someone just describe what the qualifications are if someone wanted to be part of the committee for the next term.
Sumaya.
Okay. To be part of the Youth Engagement Committee, all you have to do is be someone who is involved with Aurora. So that could mean live here, do sports here, go to school here, or just come to like hang out with friends. So somebody who has experiences in Aurora, and also just be a youth ages 12 to 17.
12 to 17. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Councillor Ruiz.
Thanks. I want to thank you for all the work that you've done and your engagement, because it's very important to develop volunteerism and this type of thing early on in life. You've done a great job. And I hear you've had some people who are been on there for 3, 4, and 5 terms. So that's exceptional as well. So let's look in the future though. What's the future? What are you planning on doing? You have a year that's just finishing up with a group of people that you know and like to work with, and you've got new coming on. Tell me what you plan to do in the future and tell us how we can help.
And you want from the committee, Koren.
Through the chair, I would just like to say that this year has been very full of a bunch of wonderful meetings with people from town and with the community. And well, through this, I feel that this year we've learned a lot about what our town wants to do this year. And although unfortunately some of our former members will be leaving, we also have plenty of new faces, and there will be so many more in the next term, which we will be so happy to look forward to see. For the future few years, we hope that we can hopefully implement some of the things that we've learned in the past years and provide them to a larger scale in the youth for the variety of different youths that live in Aurora, not just through Aurora other committees to promote youth perspectives, but also directly addressed to youths themselves in the community. And so as we've met with Mayor Marcus and with many other committees, we hope that the town will be able to support us in this endeavor and in our future endeavors to help youths in Aurora. Thank you.
Thanks. Congratulations. And I look forward to hearing more about you.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. My question was kind of similar through Mr. Chair to the Youth Committee. I did notice there was a survey that was done for the first 2 weeks of May. Wondering if there's any specific results that are available to share or any key takeaways from that survey that would be something that you'd want to mention or focus on, or things we can do better. Is there anything you can share with us today, or is there a report coming? I'm just curious.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to try and extend the reach of the survey and get as many responses from the community as possible, we're continuing it into the summer, and we hope to release some information about the results towards the end of the summer and early fall. And then, like the committee said, that will inform some of our programming choices over the next few years. But we'll be happy to follow up with council at that time and let you know what the results are.
That's great. Thank you. I'm assuming that this is going through our communications department. Do we have a deadline date that or is it kind of just open right now and till you kind of feel it's satisfied, like say the end of summer? I just kind of want to be able to help the message out there, because with this communication piece says to the 15th, and I wouldn't want people thinking that they can't participate.
Absolutely. So through you, Mr. Chair, we'll be releasing some additional promotional materials at the start of the summer. With the start of our summer programs, that we see a much higher participation rate. So we're hoping to promote the survey through those and through a couple events that we're doing this summer. But we're looking towards August 31st as a close date for the second round of the survey.
Great. Thank you so much. Congratulations, guys, and keep up the good work.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all your efforts and for volunteering and helping to be engaged with the community. Just if I heard correctly, you had talked about one of the things that you accomplished this year was providing feedback on the Parks and Rec master plan that is on our agenda tonight. I'd be interested in hearing maybe 1 or 2 of the key points or insights that you shared with staff that you feel is important to highlight as we go through the process of talking about the Parks and Rec master plan. Whoever would like to take that on.
Everyone's looking at each other.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think probably one of the biggest things that we wanted to do is make the community more accessible for youth. So there's a lot of talk about like paths and like accessibility, because not all youth have access to cars and public transit can be kind of difficult sometimes in Aurora. So I think a lot of it was just access for youth in the parks and just transit in general.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your engagement.
Councillor Gardner.
I'd like to thank you all, not only for coming tonight, but for volunteering your time. I'm sure none of you has much extra time. My son sat on this committee. It was called something different. He found it very interesting. But what I find interesting is how it's grown, how there's so many of you and from 5 different schools. I think that's very special, and I'm very proud of all of you. Thank you.
And to close, I just want to thank all of you. Oh, sorry. Mayor Maracus.
You can go ahead if you like, Mr. Chair.
No, go ahead.
All right. No, thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, everyone, congratulations. I mean, I came out and I met with you guys. We had a great meeting. Actually, I think we all learned a little bit of something from each other. So, you know what? You guys have done some tremendous work. And I want to congratulate you. And, you know, I think our future is really bright in Aurora when we have youth exactly like you, being engaged, staying informed, and wanting to make a difference in not only in our community, but right across, whether it's the province or in the country. And so I wish you all the successes in the future. And I know that you're going to make Aurora proud, representing Aurora, not only here, possibly, or right across the country or even the globe. So congratulations. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you in future years. So thank you.
So to close, I just want to say that, thank you very much for presenting this evening. And it's said that the health of a municipality is only as strong as the health of its seniors and its youth. And I can see that we have a very healthy community. So thank you very much. And I can't say how much that we're all very proud of you for being engaged and showing initiative and being the leaders of tomorrow. So we're in good hands, and thank you very much. With that, can I have all in favor of receiving the presentation, please? Opposed? That passes. Thank you very much. So we have 4 delegations this evening. The first one, Mr. Paul Oberst, Heritage Consultant, regarding item 9.3, request remove 28 Wells Street from the Aurora Register of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest. Paul, welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I have a presentation that I sent. I know I see it. It's up there. Okay. My name is Paul Oberst. I'm a retired architect and a currently engaged heritage consultant. Some might remember me because Phil Carter and I did the Northeast Old Aurora Heritage Conservation District, working with Mike Seaman, who was in the planning department at that time, and Jacqueline Stewart. I'm showing a map that we found while we were doing that work, and it's this neighborhood, the Wells Street neighborhood. You can see Wells Street going north and south. It was laid out in 1852, but things didn't get built very quickly. So the house that we're talking about was 70 years after the streets were laid out. The streets were laid out, the lots actually changed by the time they were built. Next slide, please. This just shows in the block itself the different houses, and there are many different styles. There's Georgian, there's Victorian, there's Edwardian, there's arts and crafts. And this is because it took a long time to build all these buildings, and styles changed. The 19th century was the craziest change. It was like Paris hemlines. Next slide, please. I'm sure you're all familiar with Ontario Regulation 906 and all the stuff that's had to go on with it. This is a review of all the properties that were on the register, and each property got looked at. And this is the sheet that's for this particular property. And generally, I agree with what the conclusions of this, but I say terms and conditions apply. So we'll see a little later. Can I go to the next slide, please? This is the house itself. You can see on the top left-hand slide, you can barely make out because there's planting in this side yard, but there's a little funny little addition that sticks out on the side of the house at the back that isn't in part of the original architecture. And the enclosure of the front porch is also not part of the original architecture. And you can see a garage that's barely standing up. Next slide, please. These are just interior shots, the front porch, the living room, the dining room, the front hall, the stair going up in the kitchen. You can see the kitchen has started a renovation but never finished it. Next slide, please. This is, again, this is other rooms in the house, upstairs bedrooms. The two upper left ones are the rear additions on the house, which again, some kind of renovation started, but it was never finished. So at the time that the owners took possession of this house, it was not left in actually a habitable condition. Next slide, please. These are in the basement, and you can again see, you can see the stairs coming down. The middle picture is another room where they started a renovation and did not finish it. And the back is a part of the unfinished basement that shows the new hydro installation that was put in at some point, and an old washer sinks. Next slide, please. So this is Ontario Regulation 906. The report that Adam put together has got the same items in it. I just put it in a slightly different format. So the top line is design and physical values, three criteria. The historical or associative values, 3 criteria, and the contextual value, 3 criteria. And I've made in large type number 1 and number 7 because those are the 2 that have been identified that this house has some meeting, it's a criteria that's met. So I've bolded and underlined that only 2 in that whole list of things. There's like about, when you add them all up, there's like 30 different criteria. There's only 2 that this house dings. So I don't think that's a very strong. If you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you for your patience. From the review, the house has fair integrity and is in fair condition, and its moderate heritage value, that is, say, less than good. It meets only one of the criteria, one of the items listed in our criteria 1 and criteria 7. So it's a representative example of an Edwardian style house, but it's neither rare, unique, nor early. It supports the character of the area, but does not define or maintain it. These items in each case are the weakest under their criteria. Under design or physical value, just about any building is representative of something. It's not much of a distinction. Likewise, supporting the character is the bronze medal of the 3 items that are listed there. So in my opinion, could we have the next slide? Can we have the next slide, please? Oh, okay. So the ministry offers the advice that individual properties being considered for designation must undergo more rigorous evaluation than is required for listing. This is in the heritage toolkit that the ministry has offered. And the thing to notice is that Ontario Regulation 906 is not a mandate. It doesn't say if you meet 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of these criteria, you must designate. It doesn't say you may designate. It doesn't say you should designate. It just says you may designate. So it's not a mandate to tell you to do it. And
Mr. Oberst, if you can kindly wrap up.
Yeah, I'm all done, really. I just want to say, in my professional opinion, the house does not merit the protections of designation under Part 4 of the Act. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Oberst. I have a motion to receive and refer the comments of the delegation, please. Councillor Gallo, Councillor Thompson. Oh, any comments or questions? Okay, no comments or questions, so I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Oppose? That passes. Thank you, Mr. Oberst. We're just receiving your delegation and we'll discuss the item later on in council. Our second delegation, Maria Ceresino, resident. It's a written delegation. Item 9.3, request to remove 28 Wells Street from the Aurora Register of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Oberst. We're going to, okay, can I have a motion to receive and refer the written comments, please? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gilliland, all in favor? That passes. Thank you. Okay, the third delegation, Javed Khan, President Chair of Aurora Sports Hall of Fame, regarding item 9.2, SARC Gymnasium Addition Capital Project Award. Welcome again, Javed. You have 5 minutes.
Great. Thank you. We meet again. Town Aurora Council staff, ladies and gentlemen, and all who's watching us on YouTube. First and foremost, I want to recognize two of my executive committee members behind me, past President Dave Tom and our treasurer, Brian Roberts. Tonight, I stand before you to discuss a matter of great importance to our community, and that's the SARC Gym project. As the president and chair of the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame and a passionate advocate of sports and recreation, I believe it is crucial that we recognize the immense value this project brings to our town and to our sport and recreation community. Today, I want to emphasize the long-term benefits that gym expansion will provide to our community and highlight the reasons why we are wholeheartedly supporting this endeavor. First, investing in the expansion of the SARC Gym is an investment in the well-being and health of our residents. Regular physical activity is essential for maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and an upgraded gym facility will encourage more individuals to participate in sports and fitness activities. The availability of modern equipment and ample space will create an environment that inspires individuals of all ages and abilities to engage in physical exercise, lead to improved overall health, and reduce risk of chronic diseases. Second, an expanded gym facility will offer additional opportunities for various sports and recreational activities. It will provide a larger space for organized leagues, clubs, and community groups to host practices, games, and events. This increased capacity will enable us to accommodate more participants and cater to a wider range of sports, ensuring that everyone in our community has access to quality facilities and the chance to pursue their athletic passions. In addition to the direct benefits of sports and recreation, the SARC Gym expansion will have a positive ripple effect on our community. By providing a larger viewing area, we can encourage families, friends, and supporters to come and cheer on their loved ones during sporting events. This creates a sense of community, spirit, and unity, fostering a positive and inclusive environment for all. Third and most importantly, with the increased foot traffic and patronage that the expanded gym will attract, there will be a greater opportunity for exposure to the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame. As visitors utilize the facility, they will have the chance to explore the rich history and accomplishments of our local sport legends. This exposure will not only enhance the visibility of our organization, but also inspire and educate future generations about the significant contributions of our athletes, coaches, and builders. The long-term benefits and improved health, increased sports participation, and enhanced community engagement far outweigh the initial costs. By prioritizing the SARC Gym expansion, we are investing in the future of Aurora and creating a legacy that will positively impact generations to come. I urge you all to support the SARC Gym project and recognize the immense value it brings to our community. Let us focus not only on the immediate investment, but also on the long-term benefits to our residents' health, the increased sports and recreational opportunities, and the sense of community spirit it will foster. Ladies and gentlemen, together, let us build a stronger, healthier, and more vibrant Aurora. Thank you for your attention, and let us move forward with unwavering determination to make this vision a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Javed. May I have a motion to receive and refer the comments of the delegation to item 9.2? Councillor Weiss, Councillor Gilliland, any comments or questions? Okay, no comments or questions. I'll call the vote then. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. And our final delegation, Mr. Mark Yarranton, KLM Planning Partners regarding item 9.6, application for zoning bylaw amendment 235-1528 Ontario Limited and Aurora Leslie Developments Limited, 20-85 Monarch Park Gate, 25-455 Addison Hall Circle, and 355 or without 355 Addison Hall Circle. So welcome, Mark. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, council, staff. Again, my name is Mark Yarranton with the firm of KLM Planning Partners here on behalf of the applicant with respect to item 9.6 on the regular agenda. I intend to be brief tonight. I believe that the staff report that Mr. Ramuno and his staff have put together appropriately addresses the relevant planning matters and issues, I guess, that had been identified. We support the recommendation, and I'm here to answer any questions should they arise either now or I guess when the item is called for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I have a motion to receive and refer the comments of the delegation? Councillor Gallo, Councillor Gardner, comments or questions? Mr. Mayor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just, maybe, Mr. Chair, if you could remind the delegate that there's no opportunity for the delegate to answer questions when we're actually discussing the item. Because I just heard that and I just want to make sure that he was aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's correct. If there's no comments or questions, I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? Opposed? That passes. Thank you, Mr. Yarranton. So we're moving on to the consent agenda. I may have a motion to receive item 7.1 for information. Councillor Gallo, Councillor Weiss. Any questions or comments on the item? Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Is this an opportunity to pull some of the committee meeting minutes or just the way it is on the agenda?
It's just 7.1.
Oh, I don't have the updated one. That's why I'm trying to look for it. No, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, that carries. Brings us out to the advisory committee meeting minutes. May I have a motion to receive items 8.1 to 8.4 for information? Councillor Gardner, Councillor Weiss. No? Okay, we're just moving it first. Well, let's move it first. Councillor Weiss and Councillor Gilliland. Okay. Okay, so questions or comments on the items, and now Councillor Gardner, you had a question on one of the advisory committee meeting minutes.
The Finance Advisory Committee. I think in order for council and the public to know what actually is being discussed at the Finance Advisory Committee meeting, it says so-and-so asked a question and staff responded. So I would really like to be able to see on these committee meetings what the question was and what the answer was. I don't know if I need to make that a motion.
Is that a question to the clerk?
Is that a
Mr.
through you,
Duran?
Mr. Chair, to the clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, that wouldn't be really appropriate for minutes. Minutes are done without note or comment, but the meetings are streamed online. So it's on our it's on our YouTube channel. I'll be happy to send you a link if you'd like.
Councillor Gardner.
I think we owe it to the public and to members of council. We are all very busy not to have to go online and watch a meeting. When it is mentioned in the minutes, that a question is asked, I would like just to say what that question is and what the answer is. If I need to make it a motion, I think we should do it for all of the committee meetings. It would be transparent and informative. So through you to Mr. Chair to Mr. Clerk, do I need to make that a motion?
Mr. Clerk?
No, later, not now.
Through you, Mr. Chair, motion wouldn't be in order. It's the municipal act that regulates that there's no note or comment in the minutes.
Councillor Gardner?
This was done in the past, so I'll think on it. Thank you.
Anyone else regarding it? Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. I guess I'll just go in order the way it was kind of, I wanted 8.1 and 8.2, but Councillor Gardner was talking about the Finance Advisory Committee. And I did have a question, and I did go online and I did watch it. And I was confused about the next steps in regards to awards budget and what the staff's response was. I wasn't really quite certain as to what direction was made with that. So through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Nadarosny or Ms. Rachel Van Kessel, if you can provide some context. I was just kind of left a little confused as to like next steps with that.
Mr. CAO?
Through Mr. Chair. So there is a report coming to council on council expenses related to the ward. So there'll be an opportunity at that time for council to consider whether they want to consider for the 2024 budget an increase in the individual allocations for ward related expenses. So that would be a 2024 budget item. This year, council would have an opportunity to look at the recommended eligible expenses at the ward level, and then we would figure out how to move forward with the funds that exist in the 2023 budget as per the old system. So the 2023 will obviously be a transition year, and the opportunity to increase funding would occur naturally in 2024 as part of the budget process.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. And would that information be presented to the FAC prior to going to budget for conversation or input? I just didn't see any of that conversation had within that meeting.
Mr. Nadarosny?
Through Mr. Chair, I think the intent would be for council to first look at what eligible expenses are, because it wouldn't really be appropriate to discuss how much funding we need until you decide what kind of things you want included. So that's what the first report would be. And then we would take direction from council as a result of that report coming to you.
Councillor Gilliland?
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Through Mr. Chair to, I'm not sure, because it would be Demetria, I guess, and 8.1 in the compensation. Just curious as to, I understand that I was reading the minutes. First, there's been 2 meetings to my knowledge. And so far we've been presented with 2017 numbers with roles. And I'm just wondering, is staff going to be presenting current 2023 numbers anytime soon? I just feel like we're 6 months in and we're presenting a history based on 2017. So I'm just curious as to the process. I don't know who can answer that.
Ms. Rachel Van Kessel? Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would have to follow up with Mr. Rigakos on that. I'm not part of the committee for compensation.
Councillor Gilliland?
Okay, perfect. If you could add some clarity as to the process. I think we're very, very clear with this process that we were going to be presenting some clear numbers. Somebody wanted to speak to it? Patricia? Or sorry, Mr. Chair?
Ms. Cesario?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I didn't really want to speak to it. I will get that information for you. That's the most I can do. Thank you.
Perfect.
Councillor Gilliland?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. I also wanted some clarity around minutes and capturing what was said in a meeting. I'm having, when it says staff provided a response, I'm still not clear as to why we can't put in the minutes, which is what happened in the meeting, which is the purpose of the minutes, to capture what the response was from staff. If we're saying that if someone wants to know what it is, they got to go and watch a video. But the purpose of minutes is to capture what happened in a meeting. We have many times, and including on the agenda tonight, thorough description of what staff said in a meeting. You can look at council compensation, and the manager of human resources goes on and discusses what they're going to do, and captures a whole bunch of stuff of what they said in the meeting. So maybe a better idea of why, when it says, member of the committee asked a question, we got to be able to give more than just staff provided a response, and suggest to the public, go and look at a video to know what that response is. That just doesn't make sense to me. Through you, Mr. Chair, to whomever.
I believe this has been consistent over the years I've been council, but has there been any changes or any difference with the meeting minutes for the FAC, Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it is a fine line. It's with some back and forth sometimes. Sometimes staff responses are too long to be included in the minutes, and we're not exactly sure what the pertinent part of it is. But we can look at providing a bit more detail in these cases going forward.
So through you, Mr. Chair, is it just on the staff side that we can't say what transpired in a meeting, or is it also on the committee side or council side or general committee side? Because in new business, you can look at agendas, council agendas, pretty thorough on what we said, almost verbatim.
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's generally we're trying to capture topics of discussion. And so in the, like, for instance, a new business thing, we say Councillor so-and-so brought up this topic and then staff provided a response. And so that's generally what we're trying to do. But like I said, we'll take it back and look at, see if we can get a bit more of what staff are responding with.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting, we have great detail on there, but a very high level is going to provide the community and even us. If you don't sit on the committee, I don't really want to be going through YouTube videos to find what the staff response was to a particular question. If it could be high level, I think it's completely appropriate, and it would help capture what actually happened in the meetings.
Mr. Clerk, does the Act allow more latitude so that we can provide a little bit more detail in the meeting minutes?
Through or to you, Mr. Chair, it's a broad term in terms of no note or comment. So, I wouldn't say the Act disallows it. I think we just have to keep it to discussion topics and high level, as Councillor Gallo said, and we'll, like I said, look at providing a bit more there for council and the public.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Two things. I'll touch on this. I think that the minutes are meant to be consistent, whether it's GC, council, or committee level. And there's a reason why you don't have notes or comments, because then it enters into the debate. I remember way back in my first year going to the courses that Frank Dean and the others put on, and they talked about this particular aspect of it. So can you imagine in our GC meetings and in our council meetings, how many questions we collectively ask of staff, and now you want responses, like almost like a transcript. And then what happens is that members of council then look at the minutes, and then they start getting into the debate of it and say, well, I don't think that response is correct, or it's influential in terms of the debate. There's a reason why they're supposed to be without note or comment. And, the clerk is correct in terms of this is really deemed by the Municipal Act. There's lots of material written about why it's important to try and minimize that. But if you want to be consistent and have staff responses, then let's have this whole staff response to this one question be on the minutes. And every time we ask staff a question, then put it on the minutes. There'll be 10 pages, 20 pages. We go for 4 hours. And so let's not have 2 tiers of responses for meeting minutes. One's for committee advisory and one which we do for council and GC. So that's a separate piece altogether. With regards to the Finance Advisory Committee, just my only comment is that almost always, for the most part, we're just an advisory committee. The members of that just provide a little bit of feedback and insight into those reports. Those reports always, for the most part, with the exception of our budget reviews, come to council. We're just providing a little bit of guidance and feedback to try and help either enhance the report, provide councillor perspective, do something to, further the conversation and debate around it. But it's always the intent of coming to council. Tonight, we have a budget timeline document. It went to FAC first for some input, but it's going to come here. Council compensation, same thing. Budget principles, we don't make decisions. We're just providing a little bit of guidance. And ultimately, it'll be this council that makes those decisions on all those aspects that come to the FAC. One investment, the list goes on. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I understand what you're saying, Councillor Thompson. But I do think that we should know the questions that our committee members, the people we're, appointing to committees, we should know their questions, and we should know staff answers, and it has to just be very simple. My understanding that where the without comment comes from is that we didn't want, or whoever made this didn't want to interject opinions of staff into the meetings. So staff is not supposed to comment and give their opinion, but I don't think it means without comments from committee members. I could be wrong on that, but that's my understanding. Thank you.
Councillor Gallo for the second time.
Thank you. And I don't disagree with Councillor Thompson. And I certainly wouldn't want all of these meetings to have that type of detail in them. And you raise a very good point. And I wouldn't be in favor of that. I think committees have a separate role. We're all sitting here. We know what the questions were. We know what the answers were. If you're away, then it's up to you to figure out what happened at the committee level. We don't all sit on committees. And so we don't know what happened. And there's a bit of a gap when we see that kind of an answer. And if we're going to be consistent, then let's also not have all those comments in new business, because that's exactly what's happening in new business. We're all asking something. Perhaps the staff response isn't there, but certainly the councillors' comments are part of new business. I just think at the committee level, a little more detail wouldn't be a bad thing to help us and the public. I'm not suggesting we do it at this committee level at all.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. If there are no further questions or comments, put a vote to receive items 8.1 to 8.4 for information. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. So we move on to our regular discussion items. 9.1, could I have a mover, please? Okay. There's a staff presentation for 9.1. Mr. Langlois, you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of council. On a night where we honor sport and youth engagement, I'll try to do my best to stay on theme here. Happy to present the final 2023 Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Next slide, please. So first, a bit about the plan for members of council and those watching at home. This is the town traditionally undertakes these studies every 5 or so years to help guide capital planning and to assure alignment with community priorities. The scope of, or the timeframe of this Parks and Recreation Master Plan is over this term of council and a bit beyond 2023 to 2027. It's an update to a plan that was prepared in 2016 and received by council at that time. Takes into account new growth factors, emerging participation interests, and public input. A draft of this plan was presented to General Committee in early April of this year before being released for public input. So I'll speak in a moment to some of the adjustments that were made to the plan since that time. Next slide. Set the stage, a reminder that the scope of the plan includes indoor recreation facilities, outdoor recreation facilities, parks and open spaces, And not just always facilities, places and spaces, but also the services that surround them and animate those spaces as well. The plan itself considers many factors in arriving at the recommendations, including public and stakeholder input, demographic and growth data, participation trends, municipal benchmarking, supporting studies, and other policies. This input and research is documented throughout the first few sections of the report. Next slide. When we were conducting our consultations, I believe it was Councillor Weiss who asked, what is different or unique about this plan? So here you go, sir. You got us thinking, and what is the elevator speech, I suppose. So, to answer him in council, we've summarized this into 5 key points. Really, the plan deals with growth. That's not a new factor or influence in the town, but something that always is front and center in these plans. We know the population is growing and becoming more diverse. We want to make sure that your services are there to reflect all ages and abilities. Land intensification means that it's more important than ever to maximize parkland opportunities and strategic land acquisitions for the facilities and the services that your residents are seeking. Outdoor recreation. This is something that was trending upward, but certainly was accelerated through the pandemic and has remained very important to your residents. People want to be outside using our parks and trails in all seasons, and they expect these spaces to be accessible, something we've heard from earlier today. Emerging needs. There are always emerging needs. The range of activities is ever broadening, but we know that it has a tremendous impact on our population. So more activities and sports than ever before, placing pressure on existing sites and resources. So priority setting is something that the plan helps to lend support for. And sport facilities. While there's always requests for more facilities, how existing spaces are programmed and allocated is also examined in this plan. An important aspect of the plan is public engagement. We cast a broad net by soliciting input in a number of ways, including a community survey with over 500 households responding, a pop-up booth at your farmers market last year, stakeholder workshops. We had 15 groups representing thousands of your residents attending those. All user groups within the community were sent invites to those sessions. We held youth consultation, as you heard earlier today. We've had another virtual open house. We've neglected to list there as well, but we've tried different mediums and locations for our consultation. In early May of this year, we held a public open house on the draft plan itself. Over 30 persons participated. I'll speak to that, I think, on the next slide. We received written comments, and then also staff and council has had several opportunities to provide input into the plan. Since the draft plan was released for public input in April, over 100 comments were received through our open house event and through written submissions. Many comments centered on items around accessibility, which is, I think always something that you're addressing through your policies, through your capital projects, but seeking greater consideration of accessibility around playgrounds, for example, and through just review of the planning work that you do. Indoor swimming facilities. This is something that the town has prepared a feasibility study on a couple of years back, but continued suggestions for a 50-meter pool that's suitable for competitions. We heard as well about off-leash dog areas, that the current off-leash park is crowded. We know this is an item that's been in front of council and committee in the past, and with some seeking a new model for dog park provision. Trails, general support for more trails. It's a defining feature of your community. Not to suggest you don't have necessarily enough, but we know how well loved they are. And programming. We heard of a desire for additional fitness classes, aquatic programs, youth programming, so we're as eager as you to hear more about the surveying that the youth committee is doing as well. Next slide. So what I can tell you is we have listened to these comments, we've reviewed and considered all of them within the plan that's in front of you today. Notable updates from the plan, and there are more than this, but I just want to point out some that may have altered some recommendations. We wanted to make sure there was a recommendation in there to support the development of a gymnasium at the Aurora Recreation Complex, because that's an item that's, I believe, on your agenda today. an evaluation of options to expand gym-based programming associated with that and future builds. We've updated some of the pickleball court recommendations to reflect the recent council direction on that matter. It's been hard to keep up. There's a lot of agenda items, I'm sure, related to this portfolio that come before you, but we've done our best to wrap that in. Updated some recommendations around off-leash dog parks, outdoor fitness, accessible playgrounds, as well as some minor edits to the vision and guiding principles. So for those following, if you're following along, I believe a track changes version was also provided to council, so they could follow that. And last slide, really just to wrap up, a reminder that the master plan contains 64 recommendations. These are all itemized in section 10. Priority and timing have been identified for each. They're supported by substantial background research and consultation. Many involve policies and practices, so they don't all have, and the majority do not have capital cost implications. But we're always, as this council would also support, be supportive of alternative funding and cost sharing opportunities where it's a fit. So that's the extent of my presentation tonight. Thank you for your time and involvement in the process. Any questions or comments that you may have, I'd be happy to take at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Langwell. Can I have a mover for the staff recommendation on item 9.1, please? Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Thompson. Any questions or comments? Councillor Gardner.
Are we speaking to the delegation and also to the report?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So you may or may not be able to answer these. I'd just like to, I think, correct something on recommendation 49. It says current backlog of staff. I don't think that's what's happening. I think it's difficulty being able to get enough staff.
Was that a question, Mr. Gardner or Councillor Gardner?
It's really, yes. I don't think backlog, I don't think backlog is the right word.
Okay. Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly we could look at revising the language, but it is a shortcoming or shortfall of staff. So it's not like we have a bunch sitting in the waiting wings that we're trying to pull from. It's literally a shortage of staff.
Right. And I think that's happening everywhere. Thank you. Recommendation 45, I think it's 45 to 47, or maybe I'm on page numbers. I don't know. It's talking about tracks. And it mentions the tracks that we can use, like St. Max. It also mentions St. Andrews. As far as I know, that isn't open to public use.
Would Mr. McDougall or Mr. Langwell like to field that question? Ms. McDougall?
Through Mr. Chair, certainly, again, we can have another look at it. The track at St. Andrews College is a private entity, but through an arrangement that's possibility, we can use it. Much different than St. Max. St. Max has a different relationship with the town. So we can have another look at the language of how it's speaking to tracks.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. It's implied that we can use St. Andrews, and I don't think that's unfortunately right. Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, yes. Can I? That's all for now. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. I just, through Mr. Chair, to Delegate, I want to thank you very much for taking all the comments and questions. In particular, we had conversations about the off-leash dog parks. I did get a note from some people from the community within that organization, was grateful to see that there was some further comments and recommendations. So I fully expect that I'll be asking staff to take the task on some of that, as well as pickleball. So I'm very grateful for that. The one thing I just did want to point out was, although we do have 8 courts, the pickleball community would argue that 4 of those 8 courts really aren't that usable and wouldn't be really constituted as something that they would even play on for various reasons, safety and lack of fencing and a myriad of reasons. So I just really wanted to emphasize the fact that, you know, there's still a need. I'm so glad we do have this pilot project underway. And I am very grateful that it does have a recommendation that we do deserve some dedicated courts of at least a minimum of 6 to actually make it viable. I think that's a very great recommendation. So I do appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Weiss.
Well, thanks for the presentation, and actually thanks for ticking all the boxes, because as I say, you've been here a number of times and we've had a lot of survey information, and I think you've done a really great job at trying to capture what the community wants. But this plan is so important because I mean, it's very visible, the things that are built, the things are not built, the trails, all the rest of it. So it's really important, and that's why it becomes top of mind. But my questions come primarily around some wording. So I want to know, maybe through you, Mr. Chair, so for instance, when we talk about accessibility, that has a number of different intonations depending upon whether you're having accessibility to a trail or accessibility to a facility. And I think there's numerous places in there where accessibility needs to be clarified a bit more. So my question would be probably to Mrs. McDougall about, we still have another 3 weeks before this comes to council. So there's an opportunity for, without changing the spirit of what's in there, but to change some of the language and to firm it up a little bit. Is that possible through you to?
Ms. McDougall, is 3 weeks sufficient time by council?
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly, we would obviously like to hear from Mr. Weiss as to what his feedback has been. So obviously we can hear from the community. I think I understand what you're getting at with the use of the word accessibility. It has different interpretations depending on how it's utilized here. So certainly we can have a chat with the consultants to see how we can tweak that terminology within the report to ensure it's clear with its intent before the end of the 3 weeks.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Councillor Weiss.
Yes, and it becomes very important to the people who have those particular needs to do that. So the wording is important. So thanks very much for that. The other item that came forward to me from people who are actually on accessibility and active transportation, as well as the Trails Committee. I don't know who has this information. It could be the CIO. But we have a trails master plan, and we're working now with active transport and traffic. Yet I see in here a lot of references to active transportation, access to trails, how we get to them, from them. And I'm wondering how, or if we've had a meeting of these areas, the master plan for parks and recreation, the master plan for trails, the master plan for traffic and active transportation, because truthfully, active transportation and trails are similar in some cases. Some are natural or not so much. So I'm wondering how those conversations can be had, because I think it'd be valuable for us all to have that. So I don't know where that goes, Mr. Chair, but through you.
Ms. McDougall, you want to take a stab at that?
Through Mr. Chair, I'll take a stab, and I might go lean over to my colleague here related to the actual trails and active transportation master plan, but related to how this report or study can help feed into it. It obviously, once approved, will become a plan that can be referenced related to another plan being developed, so that they can speak to each other and certainly reference the appropriate materials and mappings and feedback related to here. This guiding document is meant to be a higher level related to trails. It certainly doesn't get into the designs of them, where they are, mapping them all out. That's into the other study. Certainly the feedback that, as we've heard, trails are high on the list of priorities, that in essence can help provide data to another study that the municipality will dig deeper into. So I don't know if Mr. Ramuno has anything to add, but that would be how I would interpret the use of this study that could support the planning department's study.
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, I agree. Nothing really to add. It is sort of a building block, a guide, as most master plans, to inform council in implementing any decision moving forward. And as you know, we're in the middle of our OP update, and there's reference in that document that refers back to the various other master plans that we have on the books.
And I think that's important because I think we have a lot of interconnections here. I mean, active transportation on our trails going to and from schools, to and from the GO station, et cetera, may have a different need than an active transportation out in the bush or in the natural environment. So I'll leave that because I think that can be solved by conversations. And thanks to everybody for the responses.
Thank you, Councillor Weiss. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Just going back to your presentation, you had spoken with regard to the revisions made to the draft plan. I'm not sure which slide it is, but specifically the point was the new recommendation to support the development of a gymnasium at the SARC and the evaluation of options to expand gym-based programming. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the next item on our agenda is further conversations around the SARC Gymnasium. So I was hoping perhaps you could expand upon that point about the recommendation to support the development of the gymnasium, keeping in mind the key themes you talked about in terms of growth, emerging needs, and sports facilities.
Mr. Langlois?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. So in relation to the recommendation within the plan is to expand your municipal inventory of gymnasium spaces. Gymnasiums are more and more becoming core components of every community center. Community centers in the 70s, 80s, and even 90s were not developed with them traditionally, and I'm casting a broad net in many municipalities in Ontario, thinking that, well, we have schools and we can access those, but and the town does have, some, and your community has some access to school gymnasiums, which is tremendous and something that should absolutely be maintained. But what's happened since that time over the decades is the number of gymnasium sports, the number of activities that require and rely on those spaces has expanded exponentially. Plus, so that means both the school needs for those spaces have increased, community needs have increased, and it's to a point where it's well beyond the capacity of a school, which you don't control as a municipal entity around access to your community for your programs and community providers. So gymnasiums as large flexible spaces, they can accommodate things like basketball, which has really blown up over the last decade or so, pickleball, indoor fitness, any court-based sport, any sort of gathering, and a variety of activities. Your current space, you have one at the AFLC. It's really a converted fitness space, so it's a bit undersized. It doesn't necessarily meet the needs of all groups that are seeking to use it. It's also oversubscribed. Your community services department uses it quite a bit for programming, and we've heard throughout a steady drumbeat throughout this plan is the need for more programming. Plus, we've heard from community groups around the need for access to additional spaces as well. So to bring the town better in line with trends in municipal provision, to respond to those types of activities and needs, the recommendation is to make these a core component of community centers moving forward. The past master plan 2016 recommended the addition of a gym to the SARC, so we've continued to support that. They're flexible spaces, they're low cost operationally because you have staff already present within the community, and they can be programmed daytime, evening, weekends, and generally throughout the year to support camps and a variety of different spaces or a variety of different activities. So I think we've most communities are working as proactively as they can to expand access to those types of spaces for those reasons.
Thank you.
Councillor Yellow?
Thank you. I had a whole bunch of things highlighted on my document, and then we revised the agenda, and I inadvertently copied over the revised agenda over my old one. So I'm going to try to remember the ones that I can think of that I highlighted. And just on that topic there about the gymnasium, could you just speak to, you had mentioned community groups had reached out and had communicated the need and the desire for additional space. Do you know which community groups did that? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Langlois?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So we had reached out to, I want to say, about 60 different organizations, really anyone that rents time or is involved in the delivery of parks and recreation in your community. We had about 15 organizations, 17 actually by our updated count, that provided input there. I'm going to say in terms of gymnasium space, we heard from one group called Elevation Athletics. I recall them speaking very passionately about the shortage of gymnasium space within New York region, within the town of Aurora more specifically. I'd have to go back to our detailed notes specifically, but we've also heard from other groups that are like outdoor sport field users. They're also seeking space for indoor training within off season. That's a common request. I know that we heard some of that can be accommodated within your sports dome, but gymnasiums are also a common venue for those types of activities as well.
Councillor Gallo?
Okay. Do you know if you specifically heard from York North Basketball or Storm Volleyball, the two probably biggest user groups that would be using that space?
Mr. Langlois?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they did not participate in our workshop despite our invitations to do so.
So the two biggest user groups haven't provided comment. Okay. The only one really, I guess, high level question I had, and I know you touched upon it regarding disc golf and frisbee, and directly related to input from well-organized members of the community, either Aurora-based or not Aurora-based, that can influence these types of documents. And case in point, it's 26% in terms of which activities did you or anyone in the household participate in Aurora or elsewhere. And it's well above hockey, soccer, tennis, all of the major ones that you would think would be above that. And it's clear, and you mention it in the document, that I don't know whether there's a way of bell curving this type of thing or how you address it, because it's alarming to me that a very intelligent group can be very well organized and influence this type of document to push their particular sport up the agenda. And I'm interested to know the type of analysis that you would have done so that we can mitigate that type of thing, because we sit here and we approve these plans and they end up on a capital sheet and we're spending millions of dollars to facilitate, maybe not that one, but you get the point, that a well-organized organization can heavily influence these types of documents. And I'm trying to get a sense of how you mitigated that. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Langlois?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. You're absolutely correct, Councillor Gallo. So we have the benefit of doing these plans for dozens of municipalities every year across Ontario, with some similar surveys. So we can sort of smell out when numbers don't necessarily make sense to us. Disc golf was definitely one that we saw through the survey was skewed higher than what we would have expected within a normal range of outcome. And so a few things. One we did there is we sort of removed non-residents from the sample and how we wrote that up, because what became apparent as we did our research, there are no disc golf, at least no sanctioned municipal disc golf courses, within about an hour's drive of here. So what you're hearing through this is maybe a little bit of expanded input from regional enthusiasts living here and living elsewhere. It's a sport that's accelerated a bit through the pandemic, and it's definitely one that's emerging, both recreationally and at a competitive level. So, what I would say is when we do these plans, the survey is not the only thing. It's one tool that we have in our toolbox. We balance that off against trends that we're seeing in the sector. We balance that off against the demographic input, the other research that we have, community input beyond the survey, and we try to temper and find the right priority based on that. So what our research tells us is many communities are finding locations for disc golf, but successful locations really need to meet certain criteria, and it depends a bit on how you define success and what you're trying to achieve there. So you can have something that's just for you and your family members to go out and throw a disc on a Saturday morning, or you can have something that is going to offer and support a sanctioned tournament. And there's a wide difference here between, think of going to kick a ball versus having an artificial turf field. We need, if you're going to enter into this level of provision, what is the proper approach for the town of Aurora? So our recommendation was to really, establish a bit of a working group around this to decide if this is something that really is a fit for your town. And do you have the sites to do it? You can't just put these under a hydro corridor or in a farmer's field. You have many of those, you need terrain. Think of a real golf course, public golf course. You need terrain, you need challenges. So it's very site specific as to the success.
Thank you. And I'm happy to hear that. And I'm going to assume that while that was an anomaly, the approach would have taken place with all of them to verify, especially with the user groups, stuff like obviously hiking and trails and all that's pretty genuine, and there's no real motivation to get a whole group of people to say, yeah, this is what we want to do. But some of the user groups, they're very sophisticated and very organized and very good at it. So I assume you applied the same thing to that. Case in point, the gymnasium. Did you take into account that the two largest user groups of that gymnasium did not provide input? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Langwell?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We definitely encourage and where we can within these plans, we like to pull in registration data that tells us a bit of trending over time. So, for example, with hockey, with ice skating and ice sports, with sports fields, your community services department collects a lot of that data, and we're able to pull that in to suggest what trending is like. For basketball and those user groups in particular, that data is not currently available. We've made recommendations in the plan to track what we can, so we can have evidence-based decisions moving forward. The fact that they did not contribute is we had about 75%. I'm going to estimate of groups that we invited did not participate either. So it's one of those things where we do our best. We invite them out they were circulated the draft plan as well. We invited them out to other public events, all groups, and we encourage them to provide input and indicate that this is their chance, but can't lead horse to water.
Mr. Gallo?
Thank you. And I agree. And we'll probably have this discussion at the next agenda item in terms of those two user groups and the information that they did provide. But thank you. Thank you for that.
Councillor Gardner for the second time.
Thank you. With respect to trails, is there anything that we can do to make our trails more accessible with respect to those with challenges, physical mobility, etc.? There's nothing mentioned in here.
Mr. Langwell?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. So in terms of design of trails, the responsibility for providing detailed recommendations would really rest with the active transportation master plan and the engineers that would be undertaking that work. You do have an existing trails master plan that speaks to design standards and future routing and so on. So that really is the detailed document to help guide the municipality in that fashion.
Thank you. In other municipalities, rec master plans, do they have that bullet about trails, some trails being accessible?
Mr. Langwell?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Every master plan is unique to the municipality. So We have completed ones that do undertake more integrated planning with trails. It really is a different type of discipline that requires folks with more landscape architecture and engineering background. So, what we can comment on is we often ask about trails in these plans, and they help support the trails and active trails transportation master plans, because we know, we hear from the community that trails are very important. So we've been sure to share that information, all the public input with the planning team that's working on that effort.
Thank you. It's just that if we don't have it in the master plan, then we won't do it. So, actually it's becoming a bigger subject these days. I've just heard a program on CBC radio this morning about that. I see you still have the prioritized parkland contribution over cash in lieu to try and beef up our parkland, the parkland that we have available. That's just a comment. I was looking at your comments 37 to 40. Accessibility is in there, safety, comfort. And although it may seem a given, you do emphasize the provision of benches and seats and bike racks and shade. Particularly shade is going to be very important. And barrier-free washrooms where we do have washrooms. Anyway, I was glad to see that, because it's kind of a given, but we don't always take that into consideration, and making sure parks can serve a lot of people of all ages. I think that's it. I have to, Mr. Minot, I'm sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot, because I noted in the draft master plan when you're talking about neighborhood parks here, and we're talking about it in the draft master plan, that it says in the draft master plan something about one of the things that is allowed in neighborhood parks would be dog parks. So given that we've had so much trouble trying to get dog parks in Aurora. You do have a section on that, but is there anything you can suggest that we might, I don't know if it's in your priority list, but where we might make that a priority, because as you say, so many people have dogs these days, and those dog parks need to be safe. So if they're too crowded, that's not going to happen. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rumuno?
So, Mr. Chair, I'll take a crack at this. I mean, if the question is with respect to the reference to dog parks being a permitted type of use within a neighborhood park, and I'm not familiar with that. If that's the case, again, that's really just a guide. It's ultimately council's decision with respect to when it comes down to designing or approving any new park for whatever facility you choose at that time for that park.
Thank you, follow. So it would be a new park. It wouldn't just be, it's not meant to be in existing parks. Or maybe you could just, you don't have to answer me now, but it is something that concerns me, because we were going to put a dog park in a neighborhood area and we got so much flack that we didn't. And you probably know all about that. But I just want to ensure that we're talking about new neighborhood parks. And with respect to that, are there any words of advice that you can give us?
Mr. Langwell?
From experience of other communities?
And thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So we heard from your community in the latest round of consultation around the dog park issue in particular. So we've worked to beef up that section, and we've really outlined a number of different considerations for you. There's no magic wand here. Dog parks are very site specific uses. So what might be good for one park may not be good for another for various reasons. So the recommendation is to really establish a strategy that's supported by firm criteria that allows you to evaluate, and those criteria may or may not speak to the park classification or park size. You need to determine whether that you want access to water. Parking is a big consideration in the sense that most neighborhood parks would not have off-street parking. And I think that's part of what we heard from the community, is that they're looking for something that's a little bit more localized. So it might be a fit with a neighborhood park, but there are many municipalities that have approached it this way by having a policy or strategy that gives you some defensibility and the ability to continue to evaluate sites as they're considered by council.
Councillor Garner.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, you did mention in the report the kind of dog park that I'm used to, which is fenced off. And then there was also another kind of dog park that was separated from the park by vegetation or a berm, but not a fence. Have you seen that work?
My experience there would be pretty anecdotal. But there are different, you're correct in the sense that there are different treatments. I would say, just based on our experience, the majority of dog parks that we see in Ontario are fenced. They're regulated. They tend to be larger so they can accommodate and small dogs, large dog areas, supported by parking, proper waste disposal, shade, water, and benches and so on. But there are other models out there that can consider, even if you think of some beaches, and we use like a provincial park would have a dog beach. It's not fenced, but it's signed and regulated and enforced. Some communities also use a timed sort of model where it's a sports field at night, but it's a dog park during the day. Anecdotally, there are challenges with that. I've seen challenges with that, but I think it depends on the volume of use. If it's a low use park, maybe that's something that could be supported, I would say, in your community based on the level of use of your sports fields. I don't know if that's necessarily the best fit, but these are things that your model and your strategy would have to consider.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I didn't see that in the report, but I did see the other kind of dog parks that don't have fences. And I would say that's not something that we want to do in Aurora. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further comments or questions, I'll call the vote on the staff recommendation. All those in favor? Opposed? That passes. The next item is 9.2, the SARC Gymnasium Addition Capital Project Award. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Thompson, a second. Okay, I'll second it for discussion. No, oh, that's right, I'm the chair. Oh, Mayor Maracus seconds it. There's no staff presentation. I'll go for comments and questions, please. No comments or questions. Councillor Weiss.
Thank you. Just a question about I have a few, but I'll start with one that might be relatively easy. And through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. McDougall, can you give us a little idea of the scope of work of this? Because the previous council and others chose to do this with a certain budget allocation and authority, and it's exceeded that significantly. Has the scope of work changed since the original discussions here at council?
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the scope of work that was presented as part of the approved budget this time last year in 2022 was to include a single gymnasium, high school size, multiple lines for various sports, change rooms, separate hallway. You may recall a conversation regarding a roof load, snow load issue. So therefore we had to create a secondary hallway. There was also a viewing area overseeing the gymnasium and a multi-purpose room, all being new within the footprint of that quadrant of the corner of the SARC. The space also included, part of the project scope was administrative space and a revision and renovation to the existing administrative space. It also included the visible wall to be put in, like a accordion wall in the existing multipurpose room that's there now, currently the preschool space, to make it more viable, more useful. And the scope also included a universal washroom to be added, and moving the customer service from the open concept middle of the lobby to the front of the building, sort of lessons learned through COVID, to bring the customer service right at the front entrance of the building. That scope of work is what was tendered and what has been bid on. So that did not change from the time of council's approval.
Councillor Weiss.
Thank you. So the increase in price of this has been ascribed to the proponents or the people who have come back to the RFP. Have they given you reasons why the estimates are so high, or the quote is so high for this one?
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it is not something that is definitive, or we ask as to why their rates are much higher than what we had predicted. Just knowing in consultation with our consultant team, looking at other facilities that are been gone out to tender, whether budgeted or tendered, it is unfortunately a market scenario where either it's a competitiveness for work and or that just generally the costs of materials and or shortages of trades potentially could be it. But there is nothing that I can pinpoint other than this is not new to Aurora, unfortunately. I have other projects where very similar scenarios have been found, where they've had a budget, it's gone out to tender, and it's come back in a significant percentage higher than was anticipated.
Councillor Weiss.
Thank you. And in the report also, Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel put a graph that was rather interesting, having to do with our ability to continue to build based upon the increase in price and the price that we're paying on this one. And I'm wondering through you if you could ask Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel to explain the graph so that we're all very clear about what the impact of that is to our future builds.
Ms. Rachel Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the graph, which appears as figure 1, which I believe the councillor is referencing, it shows 2 lines, and it's in relation to the Parks and Recreation development charges forecast that we have over the next 10 years. So scenario 1 would show what the impact overall would be to the development charge reserve if we were to proceed with the plan as is. And the green line, which is higher and stays above the 0 line, that would be if we did proceed with this project, but we deferred the new recreation center either out of the 10-year horizon of the plan, or if we were able to find other partners to help pay for it, then it could be something that could move back in.
Councillor Weiss.
Okay, thank you. I get it.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. I had highlighted the exact same thing, so I was just a really little concerned. It was a bit of a red flag for me. For you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, looking at our capital expenditures moving down the line. Essentially, what this means is that if we wanted to go forward with a new recreation in the next 10 years, based on this report, saying that you would recommend deferring that just based on our position. Is that correct?
Ms. McDougall or Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So based on what's presented here, it would put significant constraints on that DC reserve and push it to a negative position. This was still seen in the budget that was presented at the beginning of the year. This reserve was planned based on having that new recreation facility in there. It would have gone into a negative position. And at that point in time, I highlighted at this point, that facility on itself is not affordable. What this does is it gives you a view of if you decide to proceed with the gym and invest in this opportunity, what the result would be. But I would have to look at in the next 10-year plan we'd have to consider pushing out the recreation facility into beyond the 10-year plan horizon.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. And I certainly do think it is something to think about, as we move forward with the needs of the community. Since we first had this project presented at just over $8 million. And I remember having the conversation how we're going to have this funded by DC. And we had had it come back to council with choices of either a single gym or a double gym. And I think a few of us were a little gobsmacked by the price of the double gym, which was probably in around the 14 million we're looking at for the single gym. So I'm having a hard time with the number almost doubling within that very short period of time, and the benefit to the community since then. I do recall we didn't garner those relationships with the new high school. I know we had asked for it with the new projected high school in the northeast quadrant of Bayview. It was a conversation that was open and fluid, but we hadn't really solidified anything. And now we have conversations with St. Anne's, and perhaps there's some partnerships there that we're trying to go forward with. Some of the other things, through Mr. Chair to Ms. Wainwright and Kessel, talking about the cost of borrowing as well and how high that is. And if we are to, increase our debt, the cost of the line of credit, percentage of that, and of course, anything that might go over, we do have some risks of some, high interest rates.
Mr. Richard Van Kessel.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So when it comes to debenture for this project, right now, we do have a construction line of credit, but that's a line of credit. You only pay interest on the amounts that you use, and we have not gotten into that construction phase at this point in time. So that is the amount just over 8 million. At this point in time, as of today, the interest rate on that would be 5.03% through Infrastructure Ontario. When you start looking at the long-term debenture, there are a couple of options. So there is the option, once you get to the completion of the actual project, you can either move into a long-term debenture and lock in at the rates at that time, or you can actually continue for a 5-year, more of like a variable type mortgage situation. And then that gives you flexibility if rates are high for them to come down before locking in for the longer term. So it does give some flexibility in those situations.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. And you also mentioned in here as well, with the quote that we've received today doesn't necessarily mean that it still won't go up. Meaning that if it goes up by 20%, or more than 250,000, that there's delegated authority to continue on. And that's what you're asking us to do. So just based on what we've been presented today means that this could be even more than 14 million. Is that not correct?
Ms. Rachel Van Kessel or Ms. McDougall.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. With a capital project, there's always those risks once you start proceeding, but there are contingencies built into this budget that are to hold and mitigate any cost changes or change orders to the best of our ability within that. So the threshold you're looking at here is predominantly, so the CAO has the authority to change a PO increase. It may not necessarily mean increase the budget. That's council's decision. We would be coming back to council for that. This would be to say change a PO increase for one of our consultants, but all within the budget of the project, utilizing contingencies within that approved budget.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. I did notice an email that had come in from one of the user groups, and just curious as to maybe some feedback or comments that you would have in response to these user groups who feel that it wouldn't really give an impact to the community. Through Mr. Chair to Ms. McDougall.
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I too received, I believe it's the same emails you're speaking of from both our Storm volleyball group and YMBA. Interestingly, we do have notes from our consultation back when the SARC gym was being contemplated, in particular when we were discussing the double gym versus the single. And then when we landed on the single, what size single would be viable to them. I have notes that, albeit it's not their preferred because it doesn't suit their competitive nature and tournament use. I do have notes from them about hours throughout the week that they would be interested in renting this facility. So it's a bit contrary to the emails received, but these are notes from back in our consultation phase of the project. noting their interest in the space, certainly more so as a practice site, possibly as a small pickup game. But ultimately, they are looking at Monday to Thursday utilization sometime during our evening primetime hours. And again, these are notes through consultations during those earlier phases when council was making the decision to proceed with this single gym. They were consulted at that time and provided comment.
Councillor Gillen.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate their feedback as well and sharing that information. I guess my comments are, and I'm interested in hearing what everybody else has to say around the table is, at the very beginning, I was very supportive of the fact that, we really had a deficit in gyms and we need this because our user groups and community, it's pretty clear we don't have enough gyms at that time. I know we hadn't really brokered those relationships with the schools, which is a great win for us. Knowing that the 8 million mark and maybe a little bit more, it seemed to kind of go in line with what we're budgeting. Going up to 14, it just really it really surprised me. And it almost doubles from what we're originally thinking. And it kind of makes me question, are we putting our best dollars forward on a project with the best use with the single gym? Is there a better opportunity with a different type of structure that might give us more court space for a lot less money somewhere else? And I just kind of wonder, is this an opportunity that we should be looking at and saying, yeah, 14 mil, that's a lot for one gym. Are there some other opportunities through you, Mr. Chair and Ms. McDougall? Is that something you might have thought of?
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly relationship with the school board is always on our radar related to indoor or outdoor utilization and opportunities. Unfortunately, for various reasons, due to the operations of a school, it is never something that we've been able to come up with a solid success and commitment from the schools to permit us in and utilizing the space, and that our community groups would find the same thing. It's hit and miss, depending on the principal, depending on the availability within that school. So from an access point, it is something we always pursue, but even on our own recreational programs, we've tried to utilize local public schools or high schools, Catholic board schools for gymnasium spaces. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of consistency. We get bumped, we get the permits last minute, the school will choose to use the space. So it's just unfortunately, not a, say, consistent comfort to have that as an asset and say that we have access. I can't commit based on those relationships to date. They are good when we can have it, but then it's hit and miss, depending on the year, depending on the activity of that school at the time.
Councillor Gillen.
Thank you. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I feel like the last status we had with the new school that was breaking ground in Northeast area, that we had brokered some sort of partnership and sharing some cost, which would also enable us to have some guaranteed time with those gyms. You can clarify.
Ms. McDougall.
Through Mr. Chair. We have been in conversations with the most recent, the GW Williams School, related primarily to the artificial turf partnership. Certainly with relating to the gymnasium space, this would be a separate conversation, which we've alluded in all of our conversations that we'd love space within their school. But the relationship and conversation has been primarily about the capital project related to the outdoor artificial turf.
Councillor Gillen.
Thank you. And thanks for bringing the artificial turf up. I know Ballantree just recently have embarked on a major project with an air structured type of facility that is allowing them to utilize a lot more newer technologies that could hold 6 courts and fields or whatever it is at a much less expense and a lot more courts at the same time, more for the community. Is that something that we could look into?
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, we're always open to those suggestions. I think our biggest challenge consistently has been lack of land. Somewhere to put it that has the ability for us to have that type of a size of a facility, as well as the parking requirements that facility would bring with it. So always open to ideas and suggestions, but we're naturally limited in Aurora regarding land availability for something of that size.
Councillor Gillen, your time is up if you want to finish up and then you can continue. Yeah.
That's fine.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I certainly, I think I echo everybody's comments in terms of the shock and disappointment at the rapid escalation of the costs associated with the gym. This has been 6 years of discussions, really. It began shortly after the Parks and Rec Master Plan came out in 2016 and identified the issue. It went to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, and it was a recommendation that came out of there, and that began the conversations. And it's taken a long time, unfortunately. And you know, as these conversations have gone on, and we've tried to identify what we wanted to do, you know, the costs have continued to escalate. But I don't think anybody could have imagined the rapid escalation over the last year. I mean, it was roughly a year ago that we were presented with another report that asked for an additional $3 million. Council approved that. And then here we are today, another $3 million increase. And it's not just us. I mean, we certainly hear and have seen that trend that's out in the marketplace. I think King's Rec Center is now somewhere around $90 million. They've seen a rapid escalation in the cost of theirs. And so, you know, we can save that conversation for another day, because I know that in our asset management plan, we're paying $40-50 million for a rec center. There's no way that's going to be the right cost when we get to it. It's just going to be like the gym and everything else. We start off in a low estimate, and by the time we get to that class A, it's doubled. So I fully expect that as well. I think the only comments I'm going to make tonight really again are the need. You know, we just approved a Parks and Rec Master Plan. It speaks to that recommendation about the pursuing the development of the municipal gymnasium with the SARC. And also over and above that, including opportunities to utilize new air supported domes and so forth to address the need. It is a shortfall. You look at the tables within that Parks and Rec Master Plan, and in terms of per capita service level, that and tennis courts are the only two deficiencies that the Parks and Rec Master Plan identifies. Now, you can debate the pickleball courts and whether or not that number is accurate or not, because some of them may or may not be usable, for sure. But part of our role is to ensure that we are meeting or exceeding the needs of our residents. And time and again, we have just demonstrated a need. Within that report, it talks about, or the master plan, it talks about the fact that, you know, they have assessed the demand for the SARC expansion over the years, and they continue to see a rise in the need for gymnasium space. The consultant talked about the fact that Ms. McDougall and her team are overprescribed. And so perhaps, you know, through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. McDougall, she can comment on the fact that if we were to build it, how well utilized would it be?
So Dougal?
Through you, Mr. Chair, at the time of the project being developed, obviously our staff were tasked to develop an operating schedule, a draft one, albeit, but it's related and resulted out of utilization we're seeing at the AFLC, wait lists for programs where we could expand, rentals that we turn away at the AFLC because we don't have available time. Based on that information and the need in our community, our draft is definitely showing a full schedule, 7 days a week at the SARC gymnasium, proposed gymnasium, utilized and mixed between recreational programs and some rentals. Technically, and to be honest, recreational programs are taking up a lot of that time, and that may be through preschool, adults, seniors, youth, more drop-in opportunities, and learn to play various sports. They're all taking up some of that time. So would it be well used? I can guarantee you it would be well used. I hate to put a guarantee there, but in a recreational facility with only one other gymnasium as a municipal facility, this facility certainly would be utilized well.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. And so if we are going to meet the needs of the community, you know, and address the growth of the community over the next 5-10 years, we need to make a decision with respect to gymnasiums. Now, maybe council decides that this is not the right opportunity, but it needs to be replaced with something, and it needs to be replaced with something quickly, because the need has been there for years. One, I don't think we've identified any alternative options that may or may not be feasible. Two, we continue to struggle in acquiring land, not just for facilities, but for playgrounds, but for parks. There is a huge deficit there. And let's face it, land is not cheap within Aurora. It will be expensive wherever we look to go. And I'd like to see us be able to try and address this issue either tonight or this term. But I've yet to hear a viable option that still meets our needs, because that's part of our responsibilities. And so, you know, I welcome the conversation. And I hope that if council chooses not to proceed with this one, that we have an alternative that we can move on quickly.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Before Councillor Gallo speaks, I mean, my comments would be, there's two items that we're discussing here. It's a financial one and it's a service level one. If we want to, as part of council, desire to provide a service for a badly needed service now and into the future, or is it just about financial prudence, which is important? You can't. There is no halfway about this decision. We have to make an important and critical decision because there's obviously a need. We can't toot our horn saying we voted this way, we saved taxpayers a few $1 million, or essentially we punted the ball down the field for another later decision where it's going to get more expensive. We're living in a different financial regime where we cannot make decisions today that we could have made 5-10 years ago. I mean, I share the concerns with everybody that when we passed the motion initially, I'm not sure 2-3 years ago, but we had this discussion, as Councillor Thompson said, for about 6 years. And we've had this discussion for 6 years and had the opportunity to build something before the situation arose. And my fear is that we're going to punt this again. It's not getting any cheaper. Life doesn't get any cheaper. You talk about housing, it doesn't get cheaper. So it's a challenging decision. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong. It's just a matter of what's our priority as a council. Is it to provide service to our residents? Maybe those in different demographics may not see the need for a gym at this time, but then there's other demographics where a gym is important to them. So, I'm not going to be upset regardless of how the voting happens, because I understand this is a critical decision. It's a tough one. Through you, actually, I'm the chair, so Ms. McDougall, so we've spent $700,000 in consulting fees already, and I believe it's closer to 1.2 million. So will we gain any value from the 1.2 million that we already spent? Because if we cancel this project, then we've already, that's like a cancellation fee in mergers and acquisition in the financial world.
To you, Mr. Chair, the costs that have been spent is not something that can be recovered. This is a specific design for this site and this location. It'd be nice if we could, in concept, use this design somewhere else, but there's various and unique parameters around this particular location. So I would not imagine there's much that could be reused for a future purpose.
Thank you. And I think that's one item that really pushes me to go forward with this, because there's a need. We've already spent 1.2 million. The gym's not going to get any cheaper. So, I'm not sure what else there is to add, but I'll go to my council colleagues. Councillor Gallo for a second time.
For a first time.
Sorry, first time.
It's okay. Obviously, I share the concern. I shared the concern in 2019 when this first came to budget, and I think just over 9 million. I shared it again when it was increased last year by 3 million, and I'm sharing it again now that it's at another increase of, I think, 2.9 million. I asked at various stages whether or not there's kind of a separation between the gym and everything else. And I'd like to, through you, maybe ask again whether or not the way the tender documents were put together, if there's an ability to remove everything except for the gymnasium.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it was tendered as a whole package. I'd have to verify through the document, and I could be confident to tell you before the end of the month, if that's possible, or before. But I do believe we can amend and pull certain segments if we're not interested. I believe what you're speaking about is the administrative space, the divisibility of the multipurpose room, moving customer service, and providing a universal washroom. Based on our original estimate, that segment, just for reference and interest sake, those segments would have cost approximately 1.2 million of the scope of the project. So albeit there is a savings, please note, when you make that kind of a change, there's an added cost that goes back in because we have to redesign before the tender docs can go back out. The specs have to be redone. So there will be an additional cost, even though it's 1.2 potentially in savings, you're going to have an increased cost in consulting and design costs. What that is, I don't have, but those are just more of an awareness factor as you propose that kind of concept. Not to mention, from my role, I have to demonstrate the need in that regarding universal washroom, the viability of a multi-purpose space being divisible in multiple uses, and the administrative spaces. If you've been in those office spaces, they're pretty tight. So there is definitely a need in that regard. Fair enough. Just wanted to share.
Thank you. And if there is more information or along those lines between now and council, I would really love to see that, because I'm really trying to find a solution to this. I didn't support this from day one, but if we move to supporting it, and if there's an ability to build the gym, even though there's still some question marks on its need, in my opinion, as a one gym, I still want to try to find solutions. And even if this doesn't move forward, I still want to find a solution, because I agree, we need to find a solution to this. And I would suggest that we put our heads together and maybe on the political side, figure out how to have a better relationship with the school boards, because those are assets that are currently available. They're in our community and they were paid for by taxpayers. And we don't have access to those facilities as we would like. And there's stumbling blocks that I think we need to put some effort into to try to figure that out if this doesn't move forward. I'm concerned about the two communications that we received from probably the two user groups outside of recreational that we would manage internally. I'm concerned that those two user groups are communicating to us, and maybe if it's different from what they originally said. Right now, they're saying that this isn't a facility that they would want or are supporting. And that to me is a big issue and needs to be resolved, because obviously we build these things for the community and user groups. And if the two largest user groups won't be able to, or are suggesting to us that this is not something that they would be using, I'm sure if it's built, they most likely would. It's concerning to me. And between now and council, with some additional information and discussions, I'll make my decision. But I sincerely believe either we step up to the plate and from the political side, reach out to the school boards and figure out what the stumbling blocks are, because that's a quick win if we can figure out how to deal with them to our satisfaction, whether it costs us more, whether there's union issues and janitorial issues, and we're already spent 14 million. I'm sure we could spend some money if it's needed to access current assets that are in the community, and to build the need that's clearly necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Weiss for a second time.
Yes, thank you. And I'm trying to get some clarity on my decision too. When I asked the question about the amount of time that was being planned and the rest of it, I think Ms. McDougall said that, and I'd like you to confirm it, that right now, as it is with her local groups and her interior town programming, that they would fill the place with their own programs. I think I heard that, because I want to be clear and also talk about what's missing in this in a moment. So could you just ask Ms. McDougall to clarify her confidence about using the existing gym as proposed here, and that it's certainly not going to be a white elephant. It's going to be used. So.
Ms. McDougall.
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly, again, something additionally we can provide to council. We can provide that draft schedule to council so that they can see what our staff have developed. But from the utilization of our recreational programs and some of the through consultations, the permit considerations, again, things may have changed for them too since we consulted with them. But looking at the two user groups, upwards of 64 hours a month per group, we're interested in utilizing this space back at the time of the design. And again, this was when we went from a double gym to a single gym. And it was a high school size. We even contemplated and shared with council the desire to go with a higher ceiling, so that would meet some of the FIVA interests for them to have a higher ceiling. And I suspect their interest in this site has truly diminished, primarily because it's not a competitive site. But that was when the decision to go from a double gym to a single, that was probably where we lost their interest primarily. But that was decided upon based on the evidence at the time of the utilization recreationally, our local sports, the enhancement it creates for the SARC, fulfilling a more comprehensive multi-use facility, not only serving court sports, but expanding to serve, I have interest here, for an example of artistic swim, looking to use it for off-ice training. Our hockey sports would do the same. Could also be utilized in expanded space for events such as the chamber when they have their home show. It could be additional spaces. So it serves much more than just a gymnasium. Not to mention, it is divisible. So it can serve multiple groups at one time. Again, may not be for competitive nature, but it certainly serves multiple user groups at one time. So scheduling, again, we can provide that draft to council prior to the next to the council meeting. But certainly I would feel confident that this space will be well used.
Councillor Weiss.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So if I get this right, then that this facility that is now being pegged at $14 million is truly a town recreational type of a facility. It is there for indoor training space or other types of multi-sport kind of activity. And the whole notion of it being developed for any of our court sports or organization doesn't seem to be the priority on this right at the moment. But that's just my comment right now. So my question is, if we do this and we spend the money and we build the gym, then what about the 3, 4, 5 other basketball courts that we know that we need for, I'm saying basketball, but it could be basketball, volleyball, pickleball, all the other courts? Because it seems to me we're spending a lot of money for that box that's going to be there that doesn't meet the needs of a lot of the people that we have, and it's expensive. So my question is, and it's on the tail of Councillor Gallo, what are we going to do about the shortfall that we have if we spend all our money on this? I mean, we're like everybody else. We spend money and we have, if we can't make the end of the month, we have a problem. So we have to prioritize how we're going to spend this. And I think this is truly a good recreation gym. My question then out of this one is just to be clear about this. There are no showers and other amenities in this gymnasium for this price either. So this is some dry change rooms, not wet change rooms. Could I get that clarified?
Ms. McDougall.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. At the time, yes, when the competitive sports when we went from double gym to single, and they were not going to be using it for tournament or championship type of games and tournaments, we did go to dry change rooms. Acknowledging that if there is a large grouping in, potential is across the hall, their aquatic facility has showers right across the hall. But those would be on the one-offs when those are necessary. Average utilization of the gymnasiums would not require showers. Therefore, the decision was to go with dry change rooms.
Okay,
Councillor
thank you.
Weiss.
And I guess my last comment, and it came from one of the residents who wrote me, suggested that our survey results that we take very seriously. It said that while 81% of the people who are in that survey said that they preferred outdoor activities and walking and hiking and things of that nature, 62% of them wanted the town to prioritize spending on the natural environment, trails, active transportation, and that type of thing. So I think we have to be considerate of people's interests as well when we have sport organizations that are saying, no, this isn't the right way to spend our money. And some of our, and through our surveys, our residents are saying they're not interested in supervised sports and those types of activities. They're interested in those other things. So I mean, it's really a difficult situation where we're trying to spend money in the best interests of our constituents, but there's competing interests here. So I really don't know how to feel about this, but it seems like a big nut to cover.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's no surprise that I'm against this. I've been against this from the beginning for spending this much money on one gym. There are other issues, including the parking and just generally we need two gyms. And I know we don't have the room for them, but that doesn't mean we should spend all this money on one gym. And you know, we're talking about service level, and I would love to provide it, but I don't think we can. And I don't think when people come to this gym, and I mean, I'm a little familiar with gyms, people generally assume that they're going to be able to take a shower. I don't think residents are going to be very pleased at spending all this money and not having a shower. So a lot's been said that would support my position, but I'm not going to repeat it. Thank you.
Thank you. No other comments or questions? Just to clarify, Councillor Gardner, if we threw in a couple of showers, would you be in favor? Okay, if there's no further comments or questions, I'll Councillor Gilliland at the last minute.
Thank you. Just kind of following up on some of the things I heard around the table, completely agree that this gym is going to be very well utilized. I really do truly believe that. I guess I was very enamored with some projects that I have seen in other municipalities that, you know, are a little bit more forward thinking with other technologies that are a lot less than $14 million. Quite honestly, I was shocked when I saw this increase within a very short period of time. It was like 3 million. Next thing you know, it's 6 million within a year and a half. And quite honestly, again, gobsmacked. So it got me thinking, like, what's going on in Ballantrae and what are they getting for their bang for their buck, and what can we put here? And maybe some similar spaces, or maybe there's some land here and we should look at that. Maybe a small field that's rather underutilized. And I know we're kind of gone through our field allocation strategy plan right now. And, you know, there are some things there that we're in the process of mahjonging and, you know, having some preliminary discussions and trying to find out a little bit more about these structures. You can fit a heck of a lot of courts in that small space. I've heard 6 courts, and that would just mean volumes to these community groups over the one, and it'd be a fraction of the cost of the 14 million. It would behoove me not to explore some of these other options. And to Councillor Weiss's point, and Gallo, I guess, is, you know, like if we do spend this 14 million, where does that leave us moving forward with the demand for everything else? Because we're not done. And if in our plan right now, it says in 10 years that we should be building a new recreation center, and this is going to actually put a hamper on it over one gym, I question whether or not we're kind of going forward in the right way. You know, I understand we've had some unprecedented increases in prices. I could use the same analogy. You know, a couple of years ago, you could probably fly to Australia for, you know, a couple grand, but to go there, it might be like 4. And so guess what? I'm not going to Australia anymore. I might go to New York instead because it's a lot cheaper, but I'm still getting a vacation out of it. I just want to use the comparables. It's like, no, I'm saying that we shouldn't be providing a service to the community. We shouldn't be making that investment. It just kind of making me double think, like, are we thinking outside the box enough and seeing what those other opportunities are? And with some of this new stuff that I had no idea existed, I think it would be interesting for us to look at. I know this is not a concrete decision tonight. So despite of how some of us might vote, I know the way I feel like where I'm going now, but that doesn't mean between now and council with some discussions, maybe there's a solution to moving forward, maybe I change my mind. But I feel like I need a little bit more information before I can bite that 14 mil. My last comments. Thanks.
Thank you. You know, I don't think there's a right or wrong here, but I think we can't be afraid to make a decision. What I'm hearing is I don't feel confident enough whether this gym is going to be fully utilized. Is it going to be utilized by certain stakeholders or groups that should be utilizing it, or should it be others? I mean, it's all about prioritizing. I mean, I have no doubt that it's going to be utilized. It's just a matter of who's going to be utilizing it, right? So for me, this gymnasium is going to be utilized at whatever cost, and whatever solution we have down the road, whether it's a rec center in 10, 20 years, or whether it's 3 domes that we're going to magically find land for, or maybe we can. I suspect that we're still going to have these long discussions and we don't make a decision. So for me, I just like to make a decision, and I know that there's going to be usage. It may not be certain stakeholders, but we're not going to be able to appease 100% of all stakeholders with one facility. So with that, we have 3 more weeks till council for everyone to feel comfortable with their decision and to collect more information, because I'm hearing that, you know, we need more information all the time. I think there's been sufficient information out there to make a decision, but if we need more information, then we have 3 weeks to have a sober second thought. So, you know, let's make a decision now, and we have to call a vote, and the final decision will be in council. So that said, all those in favor? Opposed? That is defeated. Motion to receive then. All those in favor? Sure. Oh, sorry. A seconder. Mover and seconder. We'll have Councillor Weiss and Councillor Gilman. All those in favor to receive? Opposed? That passes. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead with our mandatory legislated 10-minute break, and we will continue. Yeah, Koren. 1, 2, 3, 4. Did Tom vote? Okay. Okay, so we have quorum. Okay. So we're moving to item 9.3. Whoever will table 9.3, you need to choose either option A or B. Do I have a mover, please? Okay. 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 Councillor Gallo moves and Councillor Thompson seconds for option A. Okay. Can I have any questions or comments on item 9.3, please? Okay, if there's no questions or comments, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. That passes, Mr. Clerk. Move to item 9.4. Heritage permit application, 19 Catherine Avenue. Can I have a mover, please? Is there a similar one? Okay. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gilliland, comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That passes. Move to item 9.5. 2024 budget timelines and process. Can I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Gallo, Councillor Gardner, comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? That passes. Item 9.6. Application for zoning bylaw amendments for Aurora Leslie Developments Limited, Monarch Park Gate, Addison Hall Circle. Can I have a mover on this, please? Councillor Gallo, seconder. Councillor Gilliland, comments and questions on this item? Hearing none. Oh, two. Sorry. I was on a roll. Councillor Gardner.
This is, we're back to Business Park and putting a warehouse along the 404 is really against what my idea of a business park, or I think the OP's idea of a business park is. It's also, it says in the executive summary, the proposed amendment complies with the official plan and will attract more job opportunities to help meet the forecasted employment densities. I mean, a warehouse employs very few people. So I don't know how that fits in. Anyway, I'm against this.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through to Mr. Ramuno. Marco, one of the comments we heard from people in the area was they're really concerned that this change may impact the fronting onto Leslie Street and what may or may not get built here. You do address it in the report in page 10 with regards to that question. And I just want to be crystal clear here. There's no real change to the fronting onto Leslie Street. The current plan allows somebody to build a warehouse right along the frontage of Leslie Street. Really, the application in front of us is really just talking about the back half of the property along the 404 and not touching upon Leslie Street in terms of the changes, correct?
Sorry. Councillor, or sorry. Marco.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct, Councillor Thompson. I mean, the two primary changes here are just to provide more flexibility in allowing the warehouse use within 200 meters of the highway. The warehouses as primary uses are permitted everywhere in that business park. The Leslie Street frontage, where all we do have the warehouse as a primary use. But those lands also have specific zoning for retail commercial. And we don't really foresee warehousing along that Leslie Street frontage, although it's permitted because they are zoned for higher order uses like the retail, commercial, and the institutional uses. And again, if there are warehouses proposed through our site plan control, we do have the ability for those any uses to comply with the design guidelines as approved, and the applicant has demonstrated the ability to work with us, because out of those blocks, we've seen 7 blocks that have been built upon so far in Addison Park.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just want to be able to, adequately address the residents' concerns. So thanks.
Councillor Weiss.
Thank you. And through you also to Mr. Ramuno. I read something in the document that said that this is a trend, that the trend is to move so that there's an opportunity for more warehousing because of supply chains and a variety of other things. And even in respect of Councillor Gartner's comment about what it looks like, is it the look and feel of the warehouse on 404 that really we're discussing here, not just the increases in the amount of business types that are in there? And is it something that's a trend or trending away from that type of thing on the 404? Through you to Mr. Ramuno.
Mr. Ramuno.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the business park always permitted, office uses, office buildings, warehousing, and other industrial manufacturing type uses. I mean, obviously, it'd be great to see more, office towers built. There's less of a demand in this location. However, speaking to the applicant, if an office user does come forward, those lands are already zoned for that. But they really, the reason for the amendment is to provide a little more flexibility for their warehousing, because they are seeing more of a demand along the 400 series highway for warehousing and distribution type facilities.
Councillor Weiss.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Ramuno. There's the location map, page 309 on our agenda. Could you just go through, is it, I'm going to call them lots, but I don't know what they are. There's numbering on them, 175, 225, and 255. Those are the ones that border the 404. Are those the ones that we're talking about, or we're talking about all of them?
Mr. Ramuno.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Gallo. So yeah, location map, it's the best one to look at. So it's really those, as you mentioned, 255, 225, and 175 is where the warehouses are currently not permitted. And part of our rationale there is the blocks, north of 255 and 225 are the environmental protection areas, and they also already provide a sufficient buffer and screening. If there was a warehouse proposed along on 175, through our, site plan and urban design requirements and the MTO setback of 14 meters, we'd be able to address any aesthetic concerns with respect to a warehouse type facility.
Mr. Gallo.
So they're choosing to deal with, I guess those 3, I suspect others, but those 3, as opposed to if a particular person wanted to build something on there and come individually, if they wanted a warehouse on, let's say 175. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ramuno.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. So Emery Investments, who is still the owner of the majority of these blocks, they've only sold a couple. They came in with the zoning amendment, and it's really twofold. It's one, to provide a little more flexibility with their warehouse use within that 200-meter distance of the 400, but it's also to clean up some of the language in the parent zoning bylaw that would allow for more accessory uses within the primary use. So that is sort of like a retail showroom component within the manufacturing building or distribution building. So those are the really 2 requests through the zoning bylaw amendment.
Councillor Gallo.
Okay, thank you. I was in support of this development way back. It's quite a few years ago. particularly for their environmental concerns and permeable pavements and all that kind of stuff. So I'll be in support of this.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gallic or Gardner?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Bruno. Could you just repeat what you said? These 3 blocks were not zoned for warehousing?
Mr. Bruno?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the zoning bylaw has a criteria that says warehousing is not permitted within the 200 meters of the 404 right of way. So it's really primarily those three blocks as mentioned by Councillor Gallo. Then you've got the road, so it really wouldn't extend much beyond the that north-south road. But that's the stipulation currently in the zoning bylaw, the restriction of warehouses within that 200 meter distance of the right of way, the highway right of way.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. I was in support of this from the beginning as well. Again, through you to Mr. Muno. I believe the intent was to have more prestige building along the 404. Good for Aurora and also good for the offices. Am I correct in thinking that?
Mr. Muno?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the business park does speak to, prestige employment uses, but again, in the OP and the zoning bylaw, it does list a variety of different uses, such as the office and warehousing, manufacturing, industrial condominium units, etc.
Thank you. Just a comment. I mean, along the 404 is prestige space for a business to locate. So I just can't agree with putting warehouses there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Anyone else for further comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That passes. That comes to the end of the regular agenda. We have a notice of motion. Sir, one more? Oh, I was too optimistic. There's one more. Here we go. The blue box transition update. Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Thompson and Councillor Gardner. Comments or questions, please? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I think one of the pieces that I find are missing is the financial implications, and I'm not comfortable with how it's positioned within the report, where it talks about the fact that with respect to the financial, it says all arising financial implications relating to this transition will be presented to council for its acknowledgement and approval as part of the budget process. And yet the recommendations before us are to give authority to execute agreements, go forward with contracts. All of these have financial implications. So there's going to be costs arising out of it, but then we've made these commitments and then they say, well, the approval is in the budget process. I think at that point, the ship has already sailed. You're kind of stuck. You've already agreed to these kind of pieces. And so I'd like to get between now and council, at least a little bit of a ballpark figure or some ideas of what we're talking about, because we spend a significant amount of dollars in terms of waste removal services. And is it going to be neutral, positive, negative, some sort of senses towards it? Over and above that, it does identify the fact that there are a number of customers that get currently serviced. I think the number thrown out there in the report is 125, and they would be non-eligible going forward. So some solutions also have to be identified for them. I'm assuming there's going to be a cost. Whose cost is that, whether it's the towns or the customers? Like, I just feel that the report does a good job of outlining the history, the issues, how we're going to move forward. But I would have a greater comfort level if I also understand a little bit of the financial implications around it, because there will be. And I'd rather know that going in than after the contracts are signed and then the budget comes to us. And really, there's no opportunity for any input at that point. It's already baked in stones, how shall we say. So That's my only comment at this point in time.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gallo.
And I share that concern. And I also, whether tonight or maybe I can have a separate meeting, there's a lot of moving parts here. And there's a lot of things that have to happen, and that we're also giving a lot of delegated authority. There's terms that I've never seen before, circular material, Ontario, and there's another one here, producer responsibility organizations. This is the first time I've been exposed to, in 10 years of council, this type of, and maybe there's a big change, and that's what's happening here. But is there someone can give me a very broad, general sense of what's happening here?
Mr. CAO.
Yes, to you, Mr. Chair. So this report is an update on the process where the producers are taking the responsibility for the blue box collection of residents at the curb. And so as a result of that, we have to modify our contract with GFL because we're not going to pay them to pick them up anymore eventually. The producers will cover that cost. But GFL will still be picking them up. We don't know a lot of the details still. They're still all being worked out, but we do know that with contracts coming up with GFL, for example, we have to start the process of getting ourselves out of some of the stuff that they've been contracted to do for us up until now, or up until this actual transition date. In terms of the financial implications, that's not clear either because we haven't been told exactly what that transfer is going to be. That's still being negotiated between the producers and the government and or whoever's controlling this. But we know there'll be a net savings because right now, that portion that we're paying GFL will no longer be paid by us. The uncertainty comes with the fact that what this doesn't address is blue box pickup for commercial, for one. So we know we have to bring a series of questions back to council to clarify what council wants to do with respect to the remaining components of waste management or solid waste pickup that council wants to direct how we're going to do it in the future. So inevitably in that conversation, we're going to be forced to address some inequities that exist, like commercial pickup on some areas of town versus other areas. Blue box, what are we going to do with those with commercial? Are we going to pick it up? Are we going to pay for it? Or are we going to make them pay for it? So that we know there's other reports. This just, or other questions, I should say, that council will have to deal with. This is for us to walk in step with the other municipalities that are having the contract with GFL and the other municipalities that are negotiating to just get rid of the residential pickup stage of the contract we have with GFL.
So through you, Mr. Chair, who is the producer? What is the producer?
Ms. Tienkamp.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So a producer would be like Coca-Cola or Lowe's. So they produce a vast amount of packaging. So the government is now putting the responsibility on the producers to carry the weight of the program. So currently there's a 50-50 share. Producers pay 50% and the municipalities pay 50% for the collection. So the province is taking it over and putting the sole onus on the producers to pay fully funded.
Councillor Gallo.
I've never heard of that. Wow. Sounds like a good idea. The other thing is it speaks to delegated authority to to staff, but also to have Newmarket kind of run the show. And maybe someone could speak to why we're doing that. Through you,
Speak to Ms. Tienkamp.
So through you, Mr. Chair, Newmarket were the municipality that were the lead on the contract for the N6 to provide service with GFL. So they are still retaining that role as initiating the negotiations on all our behalf. But we have a joint committee that we all sit on to provide input and collect information regarding this.
Okay, well, what if we, through you, Mr. Chair, what if we disagree with the approach that Newmarket is taking?
Mr. CAO will take that one.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this was an N6 initiative. So this is the N6 group that went out for tender for all of this pickup at the curb. And so it's just complicated. It's a complicated contract because everybody's service levels are different as well. So it's not even straightforward where you just apply a factor and say, oh, this is the portion that's coming back. Everybody's got different terms of their solid waste at the curb, but it's all under one contract. So technically, I mean, we don't have to agree to anything we don't want to agree to. We have that control to step outside. There is a process for someone, for example, to get right out of the contract if they so desire. There's just, it's a little bit complicated because the basis of the GFL contract was that they had 6 municipalities and a term of contract, and that's paying for their equipment, and the whole process works for the 6 municipalities. But to answer your question, matter of factly, we can step away from any agreement. It just, depending on what part of that agreement we're stepping away from and what the ramifications are to our broader contract, it could get kind of complicated. Nobody anticipated this when we signed the contract. And so, but there are provisions in the contract to change the service level throughout the duration of the contract.
Councillor Gallo.
Okay, but as it stands now, the way the motion is written, we'd be giving delegated authority to staff to make that decision. It would not come to this council. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, but it's to only deal with that portion of getting out of the contract, and like a lot of this stuff is going to be prescribed. We're not going to have a lot. It's not like we're going to negotiate how much more we're going to get back. So it's really mostly administrative decisions and timing, and some of which we don't even know yet. So rather than us coming back every step of the way, if council wants us to report often, we can do that. There's nothing, we certainly wouldn't make at the staff level a service level change or do go in some different direction. Our expectation is that GFL will, or whoever, maybe it's not even GFL, will pick up blue box materials, and then we'll just stop paying for it. That's it. In essence, anything that deviates from that, we would come back to council if there's a decision to be made.
Mr. Gallo.
Okay, I will think more on this between now and council and better understand. As I said at the beginning, there's a lot of moving parts here, and I don't think anyone fully understands it. And I want to be sure when I'm giving delegated authority, what I'm giving delegated authority for, and what decisions will be made outside of this council chamber.
Thank you. Councillor Weiss.
Yes, thank you. And I agree with the concerns about delegated authority that both Councillors Thompson and Gallo brought up. And also, I appreciate the complication and your willingness to stand up and say, I don't understand really what this is all about, because I spent a couple of hours on it today looking. It's not easy. And I still don't have it. However, I do have a concern because garbage and recycling pickup is such an enormous thing in our community. I really want to know that we're on track and that we are going to find out if we're moving a little bit off track with this whole thing, because I believe our date is somewhere in January 2025. So I don't know if we're in a hurry up or whether we're behind the 8 ball on this. And maybe if through you, Mr. Chair, you could give us some comfort that yes, we're moving on this. We got it well in hand. But also I'd like to hear, such as Councillor Gallo said, how often can we get notice and a report that this thing is moving in the right direction, because it's so critical for all of our residents and our health.
Mr. CAO.
Mr. Chair, the assumption is that the authority you're giving staff is to successfully exit from our portion of the agreement with GFL that has us paying right now for them to pick up blue box materials. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, make sure that the same level of service is provided. So in other words, we don't do that with a big change to the frequency or to the service levels that the people are experiencing right now, the residents are experiencing. So if that changed, we would absolutely come back to council. If we need a direction or a stance that the community is going to take, we would come back to council. So the intent is that we would, in this stage of the transition process, that you would give us authority to take what's being sort of forced down us, which is the Ontario government's making this change, and to integrate that within the fact that we have a 6-party agreement with GFL to pick up all of our waste, and to sort of disentangle all of that in a way that again, doesn't affect the service level and sees the full cost recovered from the town.
So if I can unpack that, yes, we're on schedule. It's manageable and you certainly will be coming back with reports to us.
CEO.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say yes, except I won't assert to the fact we're on schedule. This has been a bizarre process because of the number of parties, and we certainly would have liked more certainty on some aspects of the technical aspect of how this is going to happen, and we don't have that. So, but yes, we are moving towards the same transition date. This council chose at staff recommendation that we would be in the last group, so that a lot of the bugs we expect will be worked out as the other municipalities that are getting on. I think Toronto is one of the first ones to jump on to get out of the business. So I think they're in 2024 or 20. Wait.
No, they're currently transitioning as of July this year.
So we'll learn from the other municipalities.
Great.
Thank you. So we'll learn from some of the other growing pains that are going through with the earlier. That's specifically why staff suggested to council back whenever that we wait this out until there's some clarity and be the last group to do the transitioning. We chose that, yes, as a direction earlier in the process.
Councillor Weiss.
So, and I would like to be able to say to people who ask that they won't even know the difference. Is that our outcome? That's our best efforts. That's our intent, so that a year in January of 2025, we can say, yeah, we told you so.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is the intent, although I really can't guarantee that because there's still some uncertainty about, with the service that will be provided at the end of the day. But I will say that if there is a change, it will come back to this council.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm confident as well.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I know this was on Mr. Downey's list of things that he was, I'll say, quite concerned about. When we first discussed this, I think it was 2020, 2025 seemed a long time away. But it really wasn't. I think the bottom line is that this is really a great initiative because the whole idea behind it is to get people who produce packaging to find ways to produce less. So I think it's going to have a lot of moving parts and it's going to be very difficult. So I wish you wisdom and courage and everything else.
Councillor Thompson for second time.
Thank you. Just a couple things. One, for those that want to learn more, there's a website called Stewardship Ontario. That certainly has a lot of the history. This is not just Ontario. Other provinces are also incorporating and doing this as well from an end user perspective. And so there's probably more information than you'd care to read, but there's lots out there about the history, the transition, where it's going. I did have another point I wanted to make, but the CEO did mention it because one of the concerns is the service level impacts. Under the regulation, the producers, the contractors, producers are only required to pick it up every other week, which is a big change in our service levels if they were to stick to that regulation, because our residents are accustomed to it being picked up every week, and that would be a big one. So, the CAO has already answered that question, that if there is a change in those service levels, then that would come back and that would be a conversation as well, because I think that definitely needs to, any of those impacts need to be brought to our attention and have further conversations about how are we going to address that and do that, because I can only speak for myself, but I don't think I'd want to see us move to every other week when it comes to recycling.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gardner.
And I'd just like to add to that, there's going to be a lot more products that can be recycled, including styrofoam. So there's going to be a lot more to recycle. And we may have to go the way of Toronto with the big bins that they have, which some residents will not be pleased about. So we would need a lot of lead time if that was to be the case. Thanks.
Okay, I'll call a vote. There are no further questions. All those in favor? Opposed? That passes, Mr. Clerk, and that'll bring us to the regional report, Regional Council highlights of April 28, 2023. Can I have a motion to receive the report, please? Councillor Weiss, seconder. Councillor Gallo. Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That passes. Brings us to new business. I'll start to my right, if that's okay, Councillor Weiss.
My new business is really a bit of old business, and it has to do with the men's emergency and transitional housing development that we had a planning session in some time ago. And the idea was that we were going to come back to a second planning to take over the authority of this and make a decision as a council about whether the men's transitional emergency housing is a thing that this community and we wanted to approve. There have been some published information in the paper that, you know, maybe is causes some concern, because I've been getting some calls and emails from people wondering about when the next planning session is going to take. Then I took a look at the regional council minutes of May 18th, and it said in that regional council minutes that, because I asked them, are you coming back to us? How does this work? Because I was unsure of that. And it said that they were going to seek to reallocate federal funding due to the planning timelines in the town of Aurora, which seemed to me that this was us as opposed to them coming back to us. And so I guess my question under new business is, is that in our hands? And are we out of time to schedule a planning meeting to get this resolved? Because I think our citizens and our residents here would be interested in finding that out. So through you, I suppose maybe to Mr. Ramuno to see where the second planning opportunity is.
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, our last discussion with the regional housing staff was that we didn't have enough time to schedule another public planning meeting month of June, because we've got one meeting left and we've got 2 items on there already, and there's just not sufficient notification time. So the earliest we could come back would be September, because we wouldn't want to hold a public meeting in July and August, because we never do. But then I did review those minutes as well, and I understand they are considering redeploying their funding. But I haven't had a recent discussion with housing staff this past week. So I will speak to them, and I could report back to council if I have any additional information.
Councillor Weiss?
Great, I appreciate that. I just wanted to respond to the residents who had a concern, and it's not one side nor another. It's people just asking questions about it. And so I'm happy the article came out in the paper. I'm happy there was an explanation, and I wanted to find out a little bit about the second public planning. And I think you've answered that on behalf of the council. And I appreciate that. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Weiss. Councillor Gilliland, new business.
Oh, I think Mayor Maracus wanted to speak to that.
Oh, I didn't know whether he wanted new business or speak to that. So Mayor Maracus, would you like to speak to Councillor Weiss's item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just gonna add that I did send out an email to all of council right after regional council with the motion and decision, and also made note, and I'll I guess restate it again. If anyone sitting at the table would like more information, more than happy to take a call or sit down and have that discussion. I've yet to have, I think just 2 of you had a discussion with me in regards to that motion that occurred at the region, but I'm more than happy. Everyone knows my door's open, or you can give me a call and we can have that discussion at any time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gilliland.
Did you want to follow up to that? No? Thank you. Yes, I do actually have some new business. I know World Bee Day was just recently, and I have been asked through the Environmental Advisory Committee to ask if we could provide or do some sort of initiative to give education or maybe seeds to pollinating seeds or flowers to encourage people to plant those kinds of seeds. And I thought, in tandem with invasive species, I know that's something that I wanted that initiative to start this year. I understand that that didn't, unfortunately, especially with the garlic mustard. So I am hoping that maybe through Mr. Chair to Ms. T. Camp that, maybe at the farmer's market or another kind of opportunity where we could have a booth and it could be dedicated towards, education piece on the invasive species. And also perhaps maybe we could provide some flower seeds for natural flowers or pollinators, or a one sheet that's going to explain, some of the things that you could plant to encourage these pollinators to come. Is that something that we could do in the next few weeks?
Ms. Tinka?
Certainly we could have a conversation regarding it. Pollinating gardens are already within town. We have a couple adopt a park where we've had some residents put them in. So they're a good opportunity to showcase them. And I can certainly provide you with those locations, as well as I know that the region has a program where they were giving away seeds a couple of years ago, just pre-COVID. So I can certainly reach out to them to see if we can acquire some of those, and we can look at potentially setting up a booth.
Councillor Gilliland?
Okay, that would be great. Through Mr. Chair to Mr. Ramuno, and I was hoping this question would be asked because I was confused. You said we don't do public planning meetings ever in July and August, and I just kind of wanted to know, like, if we were in a situation to where, we wanted to ensure that we had time for public planning in this particular situation where they're in this crunch of reallocating funds, and we wanted to be able to come back and have the conversation, is that not something we could do if we wanted to?
Steenkamp?
No,
Oh,
Mr. Ramuno.
Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, it's always been our practice, and like most municipalities, with respect to public planning meetings, not to hold those in the summer for a variety of reasons. I mean, people are away, and we would be criticized if we try and schedule a meeting in the summertime when people are on vacation and are away.
Councillor Gilliland?
Okay, so I'm thinking the impression I have through Mr. Chair to Mr. Councillor Weiss is that because this resolution by the fall, it would be too late. Is that what it was alluding to?
Councillor Weiss?
Or maybe.
I can't comment on the too late, but it was the issue of the reallocation of funds. And so the discussion was that, and perhaps the mayor can help us with this, the discussion was that the reallocation of the central mortgage and housing funding for this may have to be reallocated elsewhere because we're not getting this thing resolved quickly. That wasn't to say that there wouldn't be any other funding or from some other source. It was just in that context. So the sooner the better from the CMHA housing funding, but it wasn't necessarily say it's a dead issue if those funds are reallocated. I wasn't there at the table. The mayor probably was. Maybe that wasn't even brought up. I don't know if he's able to ask or answer questions around that. So thanks.
Okay.
Would Mayor Maracus maybe be able to chime
Mayor
in on that?
Maracus, did you want to respond or have any comments on that?
Sure, Mr. Chair, and hence why my email to all members of council that if they reached out to me, we could have this discussion. A lot of this stuff was done in private session. Some of this stuff is still private material. I would be more than happy to have those discussions. That's why I sent out that email saying that if anyone had any questions, would like to know more about what transpired, I would be more than happy to provide that to each and every one of you.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. I just simply wanted to know if we had a public planning meeting in September, if it'd be too late to address. That was really the crutch of the question, but suppose I don't know. Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Ramuno, just some follow-up. I know we had some conversations earlier. One is the parking lines on Yonge Street to address the issues with vehicles parking in front of a home beside a retail place on a continual basis so they cannot leave. And I guess the first preference from the homeowner, and as was mine as well, is to actually delineate the actual parking spots. If you could give me an update on that. I know you were working on that this afternoon. You might not have an answer for me right now, but I thought I'd ask.
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly. No, I mean, and I did speak to staff, and the goal of staff was to, following the completion of the town square, was to go out and paint the parking space lines for the balance of that portion of Yonge Street. With that property in question, I know we did send our crew out, our operations crew, and did paint the curb yellow, and we spoke to the business owner to make sure that they tell their patrons that there is a driveway there and they should be blocking the driveway. So it's something that we're going to continue to monitor. And again, I'm not sure if it's going to be later on this fall or early next year. We'll then paint the balance of the on-street parking spaces south of the library. That's the plan, at least.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. I guess I'm kind of asking for a favor to have these lines sooner than later, just at least on that part. I know they've had quite an issue ongoing for the last year. And if, you know, for instance, this project, Town Square, could get delayed again, it could mean next year again, because you can't paint during the winter. So then it's a whole nother spring. And I just feel that, you know, slapping on a few lines delineate might help the problem. I've already notified the resident. If it does continue, it becomes more of a bylaw and YRP for moving violation. But clearly the curb is still not working and the owner has not put a sign. Maybe we can put a no parking sign. I just feel like we need to do our part with the situation. Yes?
Mr. Ramuno?
You, Mr. Chair, we'll circle back with staff and I'll provide council with an update.
Thank you. And then finally, I know we had some conversations about Aurora Heights and the crosswalk and some data, and that was in collection. I just didn't know if you had any information you could share with me tonight. And if not, you can, you know, circle up with me offline.
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, staff is currently conducting the analysis of those additional potential pedestrian crosswalks, and there'll be a future report to council.
Great.
Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you. That's all.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. Mr. Mino, through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mino, could you find out whether the shelter is or was intended to be a transitional shelter as opposed to an emergency shelter? And it was supposed to be both? No, just that question. My understanding, it was a transitional shelter. Thank you.
Thank you. Guess I'll take my turn. As I drive and run around Aurora, I see more and more of our public garbage bins be used for household garbage. And sometimes it overflows and people still shove them in. And Ms. Steenkamp, is there any deterrent that we can utilize to deter residents from using public garbage for their own personal use?
To you, Mr. Chair, it's a common problem throughout all municipalities. And we recently just had a conversation with the Parks Group specifically regarding it, just because even since COVID, it's become even more of a challenge. I've been working with bylaw with regards to it. Staff, when they do find it, actually dissect it, to be honest. Oh. And they look for addresses, things of that nature, and bylaw actually follows up on it. It's been actually fairly effective in curbing it in a couple locations because they tend to be repeat offenders. We've also, I've talked to Bylaw about doing a bit of an educational communication out with regards to it. And also we have implemented putting signage on all our garbage receptacles saying that no household garbage, and refer them to the recycling program or our waste program.
Okay, thank you. That's all for myself. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Just a quick note. I raised the issue with regards to the oil drums on Wellington a few times now and under new business, and appreciate the efforts of Mrs. Teenkamp to make sure that they will be removed by this Thursday. So thank you.
Great news. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. At the last Heritage Advisory Committee, the committee had asked, first off, the rationale for the frequency of meetings every 2 months, and I had promised them that I would ask first off what the rationales for the frequency, and secondly whether or not there's a possibility of having the meetings on a monthly basis. So through you to either the clerk or Mr. Ramuno or
Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, my understanding for the rationality in terms of the number of meetings or bi-monthly is that that's about as many items as we have to fill up the meetings bi-monthly. If they were monthly, we would probably cancel maybe every second one, maybe every third, but yeah, just to complete the agenda, we have more items for bi-monthly.
Pastor Gallo.
Okay, if I'll bring that to committee, but if we choose to, is there a problem if we choose to have it monthly and if there are no agenda items that either myself or through staff that we cancel the meetings?
Mr. Browne.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, we just need an amendment to the terms of reference. Okay. And then the committee can meet monthly.
Okay, I'll have a discussion with them at the next meeting. Thank you.
When I stick with you for public services announcements, Councillor Gallo. No? For me, Councillor Gardner, public service announcements.
Well, I'd just like to say a few flags have been raised in Aurora to celebrate Pride, and also seniors. And I don't know if anything else has been raised, but it's been a lot of flag raising.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Yeah, there's lots going on. Most exciting thing that just released was the concerts in the park schedule. So I'm super excited about that. And I noticed that you also added an extra show June 21st, because originally it was slated for July and August only. So that's pretty exciting. So those will be on Wednesday night starting June 21st. So check it out online, aurora.ca/summer concerts, I believe. And locations at Town Park from 7 to 9. So I'm pretty excited about that. Also coming up is the community garage sale Saturday, June 17th. It's a great place to bring some stuff and sell some stuff, and that's at the Aurora Community Center from 9 to 1. So check that out online as well. Great things going on at the Cultural Center. Also, the Performing Arts Festival is this Saturday, June 10th at Aurora Town Park as well. So very exciting. And I always like to do a shout out to the Royal Rose Art Gallery, which is really cool. She has an art display from York region art teachers from around our York region with their art, a show. And that's been going on since May 25th to June 25th. And I just think it's awesome to see that we have some of our educators involved showcasing their art right here in Aurora. So that's pretty spectacular. And obviously it was already mentioned with the golf course, the golf classic for the Sports Hall of Fame, but let's not forget that there's also the Aurora Historical Society. We like to raise some funds for these guys. It's a very special place in Aurora. And that is that Westview Golf Course could be where they're going to be playing, which is right here in Aurora on June 23rd, which is a Friday starting at 2 p.m. So check that out online as well. There's probably a few more things, but I'm going to pass the baton over to my colleague over here. Probably whatever else I didn't mention, I'm sure you've got
You have
Well,
the baton, Councillor Weiss.
There's only one thing left, and I just wanted to thank the Chamber of Commerce for another fantastic street festival. They ordered the weather up. It was a tremendous day. There were a lot of people, and I saw most of the people here there, and also was at the launch of Highland Gate Park, which was a fantastic experience to see that park finally launched after the years of trouble maybe that we've had there, but it was a great day, and I was thrilled by being there with a lot of our councillor colleagues and others. So just the two things: congratulations to the chamber. Let's do it again next year, bigger and better. And the great effort at Highland Gate Park. It was fantastic.
Great. We see Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. I don't know if it's public services, but I just reminded me as I was sitting here hot that I know it was tongue in cheek that we're all complaining the other night, the wards, how warm it was in this place. And I'm wondering if it's a serious issue and that if anyone is looking at it, we often have many people in here or upstairs and more than one person commented how hot it was and why that's the case in town hall. Can anybody speak to that? If anyone's looking
I see Ms. McDougall.
Through Mr. Chair, I've made a note. I will follow up with our manager of facilities to get an update on the status of the facility. If there's any feedback, I'll definitely share that with council.
Thank you. The community will appreciate it. And that's all I.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. And Councillor Gallo, one of the reasons is because of the amount of glass we have on the ceiling on the third floor. But also, I forgot what I wanted to say. Well, no, there's an excellent art show upstairs on the second floor at the town hall. It's absolutely worth seeing. So,
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. I just don't recall if this was mentioned, but I just want to do the shout out for the Indigenous month of June. That we should also give a note for that. And there's a lot of activities and events that are going on, so we can check that out online as well.
Thank you for that. And so we have no closed session items, but before we adjourn, I just want to welcome Director Patricia Desario as Director of Corporate Services and our talent solicitor. So welcome. And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Gardner, Councillor Thompson, all those in favor? That passes. Thank you.